My entitled brother claims that any money I've made from my business also belongs to him, as he's demanding that I hand over half of my business earnings over to him, all because he says that without him, I would not have gotten this far. And now, as a result of this, my immediate family has basically turned on me, and at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so my brother and I have never really been that close from the very beginning, mainly due to favoritism. On top of that, I'm basically the unwanted middle child, with a younger sister who's just a few years younger than me. Now, we have farmlands, but the farm itself was not really that big, and the yield of the farm is comparatively very low, not enough for our family. So when my mom got an opportunity to send one of her sons to a foreign land to work, she decided to send me instead because she wanted her favorite child to be with her, my brother. Even though I got married recently and leaving for work means leaving my wife here at the village because the pay and working conditions were not good enough, I also am expected to send money home to my family. I left for work and I worked for like 5 years with only maybe 2 home visits a year. It was a tough time for my wife and my kid. I also had to miss the birth of my child because of this, but I never regretted that because I always used to think that the struggle I'm doing right now will make the future for my children that much brighter. In those 5 years, I gained a lot of exposure and decided to start something of my own, and for this, I had to sell off my half of the shared land. Now, my family, namely my mother, my brother, and my sister, were not so happy about it, as they thought I'm doing something very stupid. They didn't support any of this, but I still did it, and it turns out to be the best thing that I've ever done in my life. My business made a good chunk of money. Then I finally decided to move my wife and my kid out of the village and settle in the city where I purchased a new home. Everything was going well for me until my mom, my brother, and my sister demanded that whatever fortune I made should be divided equally between me and my brother. Their reasoning for this is that I only get to work outside and get the exposure for my business because my brother took care of my family at the village. And if it wasn't for my brother, I would have never been able to get out of the village. So apparently, whatever success I got after moving out of the village was not only my own, but a shared success with my brother, and because of that, he should get half of it. But my reasoning is that I never chose to go. I was forced to because I wanted to stay, and we didn't have enough for all of us. Whatever time I was working outside, I was sending money home regularly. So it's not that he's taking care of my family for free, he's basically getting paid for it. Also, when I was doing my thing, my brother used to work on my share of the land also, so any money generated from it went to him and not to my wife. I would also like to mention that if I choose someone else to work on my land, then I would have gotten like a much higher amount than the amount my brother was telling me he was generating from my share of the land. But guess what? I didn't, because deep down I also wanted him to be present for my family, even though that means sacrificing some money. My extended family and my community are also supporting my brother's claims, and everyone except for my family and my wife's family are against me, calling me a jerk for not giving half of my fortune to my brother. So seriously, am I at fault here? Do I owe my brother half of my success, all because he was supposedly there for my family? Because right now I'm very pissed off and I just don't know what to do. Okay, it sounds like you come from somewhere outside of the United States, or at least a culture that's very different from my own. I just don't recognize where you're from, so forgive me if I get some details wrong here. But from my perspective, and trust me, I have a very limited scope of what you're going through, I do not think you would be the jerk if you kept your money and moved your family out. In my opinion, any success this business has achieved is something that you've done and has absolutely nothing to do with your brother. Like, their claim over your money is such a stretch it's not even funny. They literally sent you away from your village so that you could work and send back money instead of your older brother, who in my opinion probably should have gone before you. And here's the thing, I really am convinced that if the shoe was on the other foot, they wouldn't give you a single penny of the money that guy made. If your brother went out there and said like, hey, I'm gonna sell my part of the land and like make a business of some kind, and then made like a life-changing amount of money to move him and his family out of the village, you can bet if you asked for any of that, he would say, no, I made it myself, I'm not giving you any of it. I can't believe you'd be so selfish. You need to make your own future. I can't believe you. Like, I can absolutely see that happening. These people sound so selfish and so incredibly entitled. So no, you are not the jerk for deciding to keep that money for yourself. You literally missed years of your kid's life and was only able to visit home like twice a year. Like, that sounds miserable. I would hate that so much. And the fact that your brother and your family is trying to stake a claim over your hard work, especially after the clear favoritism they've expressed towards your brother, is absolutely insane and completely uncalled for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for changing the lock on my bedroom in a shared apartment after I discovered that my roommate was absolutely going into my room without my permission? Because after she screamed at me and said that I need to move out, I decided that enough was enough, as I issued a complaint against her in a way that shut her down completely. But now I'm kind of wondering if I took things too far, because at this point I don't really know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been sharing an apartment with another woman for about 3 months now. We didn't know each other well before moving in, but we had a mutual friend. In fact, she actually asked me to move in because her previous roommate was leaving, and at the time I was really struggling to find a place. I had checked a lot of rooms, but either they were way too expensive or they just didn't feel right. When she offered, I went to see the apartment and I agreed pretty quickly. At the beginning, she was very nice, and honestly, I felt grateful because she helped me when I needed a place. And because of that, I ignored a lot of small things. She would come into my room without asking, she would lie on my bed, walk around the apartment barefoot, and then sit on my bed with the same feet. She also helped herself to my snacks and used my things. A couple of times I tried to say it lightly, like joking that I can't sleep if someone sits on my bed, but she would just laugh it off and keep doing it. Over time, it started bothering me more. I wasn't trying to fight, so I avoided being harsh, but I began locking my room whenever I left the apartment. She didn't say anything about it, but when I came back sometimes, I had this strong feeling that someone had been in my room. I finally asked her directly if she had a key to my room, and she got defensive and said that I was being paranoid and imagining things, so I just dropped it. A few weeks later, when she went out with friends, I asked a friend of mine who does this kind of thing to change the lock on my bedroom door. I just wanted to feel safe in my own space. Well, a few days later, while I was at work, she started sending me angry messages saying, "Oh, why'd you change the lock without my permission?" saying that I disrespected her and that building staff had questioned her about it. When I got home, she immediately started yelling, saying that she never should have let me move in and that I had no right to make changes. I then calmly told her that it's my room and I changed the lock because I didn't feel safe. She then said that she had talked to management and that I have to move out. Well, that didn't really sit right with me, so the next day I went to the building office myself, and it's here that the staff told me that she already had complaints against her from previous roommates, including bullying and theft. They also confirmed that yeah, I was allowed to change the lock on my private room and that I had not broken any rules. After that, I officially filed a complaint against her, and the very next day she was issued a notice. Since then, she hasn't really said much to me directly, but the atmosphere in the apartment is very tense. This place really works for me in terms of price and location, so despite the tension, I feel safer and more at peace now that my boundaries are protected. But seriously, with all things considered, am I being a jerk to my roommate for the things I had to do to protect myself? Because honestly, I really just need to know. Okay, first and foremost, no, you are not the jerk. This lady clearly is like not a good roommate, and I think your suspicions about her were spot on. For starters, yeah, she absolutely has been going through your stuff all the time, even when you're not at home, and she's probably stolen from you and you just don't know it yet. Like, I'm willing to bet she's probably rifled through your stuff more than one time and done who knows what to your place. And that's really messed up, like that would drive me insane. I'm a very private person and I like my own private space. So even the idea of someone coming into my room while I'm not there and just going through my stuff, oh man, that would piss me off. So no, you did the right thing because clearly this put her in her place. This set some serious boundaries that I'm sure she's not going to cross again, because I promise you, she probably doesn't want to get in trouble with the front staff ever again. Am I the jerk for not picking up my sister's kids from school, as I literally didn't have enough room in the car? Plus, these kids only have to walk a mile to my parents' house just to get where they need to go. Because right now, my sister says I have a grudge against her, and honestly, this is all so exhausting, because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, my sister has 3 kids. The oldest lives with my parents and has their entire life. Meanwhile, the youngest 2 live with my sister. I also have 2 kids of my own, and our town does not have any bus transportation for kids that live in town or out of the district limits. At the beginning of Christmas break, my sister's car broke down. My dad drove it to a shop where it's been sitting ever since, and the day it broke down, my sister was given my dad's vehicle to borrow. My parents have 2 vehicles and my dad is retired, so for the length of Christmas break, it wasn't a huge issue. My mom works 7 out of every 14 days, 3 days one week, 4 days the next. I told my dad before New Year's Eve that if my sister still didn't have a car by the time school started, she would have to figure out transportation for the kids that live with her for the days that mom works. My husband and I share a vehicle, and he leaves for work immediately after I get home from picking up our kids. We live right down the road from my parents, so picking up and dropping off the child that lives with them isn't a big deal. My sister lives in a different city and pays public transit to bring her kids to the schools in our town every day, but she doesn't have them take public transportation home, and at least once a week relies on my father to pick up her kids and take them home. But today came the day I knew was coming. My mom has to work, my dad has no vehicle, and my sister's middle kid needed a ride home from school. My sister's youngest is at the dad's today, so that's covered. But my sister also never figured out transportation for the middle child. My car cannot safely fit 3 across in the back seat with car seats and booster seats. So the only kid I have room to pick up is the one that lives with my parents. I don't have time to make multiple trips to the schools before my husband leaves for work, and I will not transport more kids than is safe to do. Roads and sidewalks are clear of snow, it's above freezing, and the walk from the school to my parents' house is less than a mile. They've walked to my parents' house from school before, so it's not new to them. So I told my parents and my sister that she will have to walk home, which is what I said well before we even got here. And now I'm being told my husband can leave late for work and that I have a grudge against my sister. So apparently I'm refusing to help her and taking it out on her child. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because this seems a little ridiculous and I just don't know what else to do. Okay, honestly, it is not on you to figure out where this kid goes. This is absolutely up to your sister, and that is that. Like, why in the world are you somehow responsible for whether or not this kid can walk to your parents' house? Which, by the way, they've walked this route before. It's not that big of a deal. From the sounds of it, it seems like this is a safe area, so it's like, okay, what's actually happening right now? The original poster has no reason to be demonized in this scenario. Plus, if I didn't have enough room to take a kid with me, and they are fully capable of walking back to the house, then congratulations, you're gonna walk back to the house while I literally get everybody else back home where they should be. It's not a big deal, they've done it before, so why are we blowing this out of proportion? That just seems so weird to me. So no, you're not the jerk. I think your sister's being over dramatic because you literally haven't done anything wrong. Am I the jerk for snapping at my girlfriend after she kept waking me up every single morning? Because right now she's saying that I'm selfish for wanting to sleep in, despite the fact that I've worked so many night shifts and I'm just exhausted. And at this point, I really don't know what else to do. Here's what's happening. So my girlfriend and I have been living together for a couple of years. She has this habit of waking me up whenever she gets up, even if I don't have anywhere to be. And honestly, it drives me insane. I work nights, so my sleep schedule is already messed up. It takes me forever to fall asleep, and I wake up at every little noise. And she knows this. When she's sleeping, I go out of my way to be quiet. I don't turn on lights, I don't make noise. I let her rest because I know how important sleep is. But she doesn't do the same for me. If she's up, she's gonna make sure that I'm up too. She says it's because she wants to spend time together, but then she'll hang out with her friends or be on her phone for hours, so that doesn't add up. But this week especially has been rough. I picked up extra shifts and I've barely slept. Yesterday, I finally had a day off and I was looking forward to catching up on rest. Well, she got up early and decided to vacuum the bedroom. When I asked why she couldn't wait, she said she wanted to get chores done and that I was being dramatic. I then told her I don't understand why she can't just let me sleep, that it is exhausting never knowing if I'll actually get to rest. She then got defensive with me and said, well, normal couples want to wake up together, saying that I'm weird for wanting to sleep in. But the thing is, I never wake her up, ever. If I get home late from work, I sneak in like a ghost. If she's napping, I leave her alone. I just want the same consideration. She said I was being unfair, so honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I don't know what else to do. Okay, I need to say this first and foremost, your girlfriend is mistreating you on purpose. She's waking you up on purpose, this is something she's choosing to do, and she's being a massive jerk literally for no reason. Think about it for a second. She knows you work late, she knows you're on the night shift, and yet still she's trying to be like, oh, let's wake up together. I want you to be awake so we can spend time together. But then, guess what? That time together never happens. She's always off on her phone, she's always off doing anything else besides spending time with you. And my God, she literally went in there and was like, oh, I'm gonna vacuum the bedroom, even though she knew for a fact that you took up extra shifts. You're running on no sleep and she wants to do this now? That is obnoxious and not okay. And I can confidently say, in my opinion, from my perspective, if I had a partner who was doing this, I would leave her. I would never stick that out. I would never want to be with someone like that because that is selfish, disgusting, and very rude. And you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for supposedly not warning my diabetic friend about our trip into the city? Because halfway through it, she tried to claim that I was possibly leaving her defenseless, as she felt out of control with her low blood sugar, despite the fact that I described the trip perfectly and I checked in with her all the time. Here's what happened. My friend, my sister, and I went out to a major city near us for my birthday, where yes, there are buses and the subway, but usually it's still better to walk if it's not across the city. I invited this friend to a free trip to a museum and explicitly told her that we would be leaving our town at about 9:30, arriving in the city at 11, leaving at 5:30, and then getting home by 7. At the beginning of the day, I made sure to tell her that I have some extra snacks just in case she needs to fix her blood sugars with both fast and long-acting carbs. She also has some trouble with a leg injury, but my sister has a pretty bad one that flares up and I have a minor one, so I figured that she would be comfortable telling us if she needed to stop. We finished the museum with about 2 hours to spare, so my sister and I say that we should walk around the city, since of course there's some cool stuff nearby. Now she doesn't protest, and had been sitting down for a bit previously because she was bored of the exhibits we were in. So we end up walking and taking the subway around, and every time we're near a mall or even as we're like walking around, we're checking in with her. We're seeing if she needs food and we buy her a smoothie and a bagel. Though that isn't because she says she needs food, it's more because my sister wanted to stop at both places. She's also had headphones on all day, so we haven't known anything about if she's having any kind of like blood sugar problems. Well, basically, she's pissed at me because I supposedly didn't warn her that we would be walking around so much and had not adequately warned her so she could prepare about the change of plans. But like I argue back that we literally made the plans of walking around for a bit right in front of her and that she could have said something, as well as the fact that even if we hadn't gone around the city, we literally said we are going to be walking around a museum for like 5 hours, not including travel time. This combined with the fact that she never said anything about having a problem or having low blood sugar, despite us being aware of it and actively checking in to make sure she was doing okay and had what she needed. She then said that whenever we offered her stuff, she wasn't having issues, but it was when we were away from food places that yeah, she was having low blood sugar. But it's like, dude, hello, we're in a big city. We could walk 1 block and find food so fast. So anyways, am I the jerk for not properly warning my friend about this trip, as well as the possibility of leaving her defenseless in her words? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what else to do. Okay, in my opinion, this is absolutely not your problem. This is a grown adult we're talking about, right? Like this is a fully functioning person that should be able to take care of themselves, right? Because I'm willing to bet if you have diabetes, then you've probably got a backup plan for just about everything. Like I know people who have all the equipment they need necessary, as well as numerous backup strategies just to make sure that they're taken care of during some kind of outing. So for this lady to be like, oh, you didn't give me proper warning. Like, my God, dude, that is so obnoxious and so untrue. If you go back in the story, you could see the original poster detailing out exactly what's going to happen. Like, you're literally going to be taking a day trip into the city for this birthday celebration or whatever. So yeah, of course you're going to be walking around a lot. They literally explained that to you and they said, hey, do you need a smoothie? Do you need a bagel? Like, what's going on? How's your blood sugar? Are you doing okay? And it's like, dude, why is the person who doesn't have diabetes being more proactive about this than the person who does have it and should be monitoring how they feel? Like, I don't know, this is so backwards. She's placing the responsibility of her diabetes on everybody else around her and trying to be like, oh, this is your fault because I'm not feeling well. When it's like, dude, you should have spoken up and you should have planned better. Like, this is absolutely not on the original poster or their sister at all, because holy crap, diabetes is like a life-changing thing. Your whole routine in your day-to-day life goes completely out the window because your life is absolutely going to revolve around this specific thing. So for her to be like, oh, I can't believe you almost left me helpless and defenseless. Like, I don't know, that would be like the last time I would ever take them on a trip because that is obnoxious. You can't possibly place that on my shoulders. That is crazy. So no, you're not the jerk. This is not your fault at all. You gave your friends so many warnings about this trip, it's not even funny. And if they really can't take care of themselves, then they definitely should not go on trips like this, because if they're not happy with the way they were supposedly treated, then that is absolutely on them. Am I the jerk for refusing to switch seats on a long train ride after this Karen tried to use her kid to guilt trip me into moving? Because after the fact, I'm kind of wondering if I made a mistake here and I just don't know if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so last week, I took a 6-hour train ride to visit my sister. I booked my seat weeks in advance because I get motion sick and I really need a window seat facing forward. About 10 minutes after boarding, a woman, maybe in her mid-40s, comes up to me with a kid that's maybe about 8 years old and asks if I can like switch seats so that they can sit together. When she said this, I politely said, sorry, I really can't because of the motion sickness thing. But in response, she just looked annoyed and walked off. Well, about 20 minutes later, she comes back again with a different seat number and says that her kid is anxious and that I should be kind and move. But again, I said no, and I explained the exact same thing. She then sighed loudly and said, wow, okay then. And she said this to the whole row. After that, I could feel people staring at me. One guy even muttered something like, seriously, dude, under his breath. Now, here's the thing. The kid was not crying or panicking or anything like that. He was just playing on a tablet the entire time. But every time the mom walked past, she would look at me like I kicked a puppy. At one point, the conductor asked if everything was okay, and she jumped in saying that I refused to help a child, with the conductor just nodding and moving on. I spent the rest rest of the ride feeling tense and guilty, even though physically I felt fine because I didn't move. But you know what? Emotionally, it really sucked. When I told my sister, she said that I should have just switched seats to avoid the drama, and now I'm really second guessing myself. So seriously, I need to know, was I actually the jerk here? Or is it okay to keep the seat that you paid for even if it makes you look bad? What should I do? Okay, dude, this pisses me off because no, you're not the jerk here. That lady is out of her mind for trying to make you switch seats like that. You mean to tell me that her lack of planning is somehow your emergency and you're now expected to give up your seat that you booked weeks in advance? All because this lady couldn't plan properly? Like, what are we talking about right now? Why am I responsible for you not getting your crap together, lady? Like, not to be the bearer of bad news, but this is not my problem. If your kid feels anxious and is having a bad time on the train, sitting in my seat is not going to change anything. Like, how is that at all the solution? Also, to the guy that's like, wow, dude, I can't believe you. Like, seriously? He's saying that all under his breath? Like, oh, okay, buddy, why don't you give up your seat then? Why is he sitting there acting like the original poster is like committing a crime against humanity? Why not step up and be the hero in this story and be like, I'll give you my seat? Like, holy crap, what a hypocrite. This is so weird. And also, if I'm gonna be on a train for 6 hours and I know for a fact I have motion sickness, you better believe I'm gonna stay in that seat. I don't care what's going on, dude. Like, I'm not gonna give that up because chances are that seat probably costs extra money that lady's clearly not willing to pay. So to get to the point, no, you're definitely not the jerk. This lady was trying to be manipulative by using her kids against you, and that is incredibly unfair and just really stupid. Because if she actually cared about her kid, she would have booked a seat well in advance, just like you did. My entitled teacher shows some clear and obvious favoritism as she is constantly giving me good grades while giving my friend horrible grades despite us turning in basically the same work. So me and my friend decided to get some revenge for not only exposing her for being a horrible teacher, but also by getting the school board to fire her on the spot. And I honestly have never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Many years ago in my senior year of high school, I was placed in an English class with a close friend of mine. We'll call him Jack for the sake of the story. And being in a class with Jack was extremely exciting. The only issue was that our teacher, who we'll call Mrs. Smith, was known for being absolutely horrible and targeting students that she didn't like. A few weeks into the class, Jack and I started to realize that he was getting lower grades on assignments where our work was practically identical. Since he was such a close friend, this really pissed me off, especially because it was obvious that Mrs. Smith wasn't even reading my assignments. I would consistently get 100%, while Jack's grades would come back anywhere from 60% to 80% for no apparent reason. I even tried to edit and revise his work before submitting it, thinking that maybe my teacher just liked my writing style compared to him. This, of course, changed nothing and cemented the fact that she gave him worse grades solely because she didn't like him. This continued to happen throughout the entire semester, and at this point, I had a 100% in the class, while Jack had somewhere around a C-. Since I was already guaranteed to get an A, I decided to do something pretty stupid in hindsight, but Jack and I still laugh about it to this day. One of our last assignments was to write a report on a movie of our own choosing, but instead of doing that, I decided to write out the lyrics of First Day Out by T. Grizzly repeatedly until it hit the 4-page requirement for the assignment. And if you're unfamiliar with the song, it is extremely vulgar and has no place in an academic environment. Well, unsurprisingly, when we got our assignments back, I received an A+ once again, while Jack got a B-. The next day, Jack and I went to the principal's office and presented our grades, giving concrete proof that Mrs. Smith unfairly graded students. Now, the principal was obviously shocked and said that they would look into it. A few weeks later, the semester was wrapping up and we still hadn't heard anything about Mrs. Smith until my graduation counselor informed me that the school board had reviewed my assignment and were moving forward with firing her. Apparently, this was one of the many complaints she had received over the years, and my assignment was the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, the next semester, Mrs. Smith had been replaced with a substitute teacher, and to my knowledge, she no longer works at the school. Okay, this is crazy because I cannot understand why teachers do this. Just because you like or dislike a student should not change the fact of whether or not they landed the grade they deserve. Like, seriously, this guy was quoting lyrics from a vulgar song, and he somehow got an A+. Meanwhile, Jack is probably pulling his hair out trying to figure out, like, wait, what am I doing wrong? How am I not getting an A? Like, are you kidding me right now? So seriously, I love the way you got this teacher fired, because if anybody deserved that, it absolutely was her. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My parents, after having disowned me for several years, have now reached out to me explaining that my mother has cancer, and after dealing with their awful treatment towards me for so many years, I'm hesitant to step back into their lives as I'm afraid that they're going to try and control mine all over again. Here's what happened. My parents disowned me last year, and it's now been a little over a year, and unfortunately, this isn't the first time. They also disowned me 2 years ago for a few months. They came back to talk to me, and at first, it seemed like things were smoothed over, but of course, they absolutely weren't. Now, a bit about my parents. My father mistreated my mother for most of my life. She was always in his shadow, and we lived in fear, but that was considered okay because we had enough money, we went on vacations, and had everything material that we needed. Besides being physically mistreated, I wasn't fully aware of how deep the psychological scars were until I met my long-term boyfriend. Being with him helped me realize just how problematic my parents' behavior towards me was. Daily control, constant belittling, treating me like I was 12 when I was actually 20 years old. For the first time, I started standing up for myself and behaving like an adult. At first, things were fine between them and my boyfriend, but that changed over time. My boyfriend and I went through rough patches, arguments, and even breakups, but we worked through them together. The first big issue arose when my boyfriend moved in with me in the city where we lived. This didn't align with my father's standards, meaning that we didn't ask for his permission in person at his house, even though we did call him. My boyfriend took over paying rent so that my parents wouldn't have any control over me, as I was still a student at the time. Later, we decided to leave the city and move to a more rural area where my boyfriend inherited a house that needed some work. We wanted to fix it up and make it our home, and that's when my parents disowned me again. Eventually, they came back, and after a lot of back and forth, we reconciled. But after some time, they started another cycle of manipulation and mistreatment, insulting where I lived, mocking me, saying I'd be stuck taking care of livestock, and I would become a dumb country girl, all despite my education. They called me worthless, said my boyfriend had me under his control, and that he probably had me on some kind of substance, and the list just goes on and on. During this, my boyfriend and I had a huge argument, and I decided to leave the house. There was a lot of yelling, but no violence. Well, my parents came to get me, and I moved back in with them, and they were overjoyed. Everything was fine for a while until my boyfriend reached out to my father, trying to explain that he was the one who suggested I leave because our living conditions were not ideal. We had no heating, no bathroom, etc., but my father refused to listen and got even angrier, saying my boyfriend had no right to call him. My boyfriend then called me and I went to see him. I wanted to bring him home so that we could all talk properly, but my father said my boyfriend could only kiss his feet before getting kicked out. He told me I had two choices: walk out the door and never return, or stay and block my boyfriend completely. So I panicked, had a breakdown, and blocked my boyfriend, who had been waiting outside for me. For a month, we had no contact. I moved in with my sister in a bigger town near where my boyfriend lived. One day, he came to her place just to hand me a letter and see me one last time, and that's when I unblocked him and we started talking occasionally. After a while, I realized I wanted to try again with him, but when I told my parents, they said they would disown me again. They claimed that he would hit me, throw me out like a dog, and that I would end up homeless, and then they started cursing me out, but I just stayed silent. Then I realized, wait a second, why do they think they can forbid a 23-year-old woman from seeing or reconciling with her partner? It was insane. Meanwhile, they either treated me like a princess or a servant. One moment they would say, you don't have to cook, you've cooked enough. And then they would say, well, why don't you cook? You're just sitting around. If I did end up cooking, they would say, oh, what, just for one meal? And if I cooked more, they would say, that's nothing. My sister started spying on me and gave me a cleaning schedule, and my parents showed up unannounced twice a week. That's when I fully realized how sick our relationship was, how it wasn't normal for someone to control a grown woman's life. What if I wanted to move or change jobs? Would they think they had the right to decide for me? Just like my whole childhood, where I lived in their shadow, afraid to even breathe differently for fear of their reaction. So I told them I was getting back together with him. Their response was to say, you'll only enter this house again in a coffin or in a stretcher. They then called me an addict, they said I'm mentally ill, and cursed everything that they ever gave me, and told me that their doors were closed forever, even if my boyfriend hurt me or threw me out on the street. But I just simply said okay. Within days, I moved out completely, and it was then that they told everybody not to talk to me. They bothered my grandparents, checked their phones, monitored their messages, and yelled at them. My aunts eventually reached out, and when I saw my mother at a family wedding, I nodded at her, but she ignored me completely. My sister also cut off contact because I told her I wouldn't call her just to avoid being bothered, but that I'd always answer if she called me. And the one time that she called me, I missed her call and she never called again. My grandparents secretly came to see me, but later my father found out because he has people in the village watching me. But with all that in mind, this is where the twist comes into play. My mother has cancer. She had her uterus removed and she's now recovering. My grandparents are pushing for us to reconcile, and they accidentally gave her my new phone number. My parents are also now claiming they have no issue with my boyfriend anymore. I understand why my grandparents want peace, but I can't erase everything that they said to me, or the year I spent completely alone. During this time, my boyfriend and I have struggled with rising costs and inflation, but we made our choice and that's fine. But still, every time I think of my parents, I feel nothing but anger. A few days ago, my mother messaged me. She said to me, "I think enough time has passed and it would be nice to meet and talk. I've been at home resting, so why not? If you feel the same, let me know." I replied by saying, "I heard what happened and I hope you recover soon. If you want to talk, we can, but I don't see where that conversation would lead. Time alone will not erase everything that was said to me without a good reason." She responded by saying, "It wasn't right on either side. If you want to talk, let me know." And that response infuriated me. I haven't replied in 10 days. I never insulted them or responded to any of their words, but they trashed my name and disrespected me entirely. Now, I thought that was the end of it, but today she messaged me again, asking to meet in a nearby town. My boyfriend says I should go since it can't get any worse, and I am considering it, just to put an end to their constant calls and messages, and to hear what they have to say. But the idea makes me deeply uncomfortable and very anxious. I avoid conflict and I don't know how to handle it. I'm afraid they'll manipulate me again, and I will end up back in the same cycle. So what do you think? I know this is a lot and you don't have the full picture, but please help me gain some kind of perspective. Everyone around me just says do what you think is right, or just ask me if I could live with never seeing them again if something happened to them. But I don't even know how to deal with what's happening now, let alone any hypothetical future situation. I feel lost and overwhelmed. It seems so unfair that everyone expects me to make the effort, to visit, to talk, to lower my pride, when in the end I was the only one who was hurt by them. Because right now I really don't know what to do. Honestly, I think considering the circumstances, I can only speak to what I would do, and I know in my situation I would not be very open to talking to them, especially after the way they treated you. Like seriously, these people have been trying to control your life from the very beginning, and they go through these same phases where they're like, "Oh yeah, you're doing fine," and then suddenly when you do something that they don't explicitly like, they turn around and act like this is the end of the world. Like they literally disowned you twice already. Who's to say they wouldn't do that a third time the second you step back into their life? So for me, I would weigh things out and be like, okay, is it worth it in the end to talk to these people, or am I just gonna be happier by avoiding them and moving on? Because as far as I'm concerned, the way they're talking to you and the way they've treated you in the past is something that you absolutely need to be aware of. Because in my opinion, it seems like this cycle is starting all over again, and you very easily could be walking right back into their grasp. Am I the jerk for leaning on a nearby wall after being denied use of gym equipment by a woman doing supersets? Because after I asked her if I could work in, she said that I couldn't and that I couldn't be in her space in a public gym. And I'm honestly so annoyed by this interaction that I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my apartment building has a small exercise area, including a cable crossover machine, an adjustable bench, some dumbbells, some treadmills, and a small side room for yoga or other bodyweight or kettlebell exercises. The gym was empty this morning, except for one woman doing row exercises on the cable crossover machine, and I noticed that she had placed her phone next to the bench with a couple of dumbbells. For context, I'm a fairly tall guy, and she's kind of short, and I specify this because it seems like that plays into the dynamic from her perspective. So I ask her, "Can I use that bench?" But she responds by saying, "No, I'm doing supersets." Now, I was a bit taken aback. There is room for 2, maybe 3 people in the resistance and weight training area, and she was using every piece of equipment. Not sure what to do, I lean on a nearby wall and I start looking at my phone. Now, I'm a bit upset, and I look up every so often to see when she'll be gone. She then takes out her earphones and says something to the effect of, "Are you just going to stand there?" And then we get into a big argument. I say something to the effect of, "What else am I supposed to do? You won't let me work in." She then says to me, "I don't want you in my space, go do something else." But I replied by saying, "Oh, so I can't do pull-ups on the cable crossover while you're using the bench?" She then says back to me, "No, I don't want you in my space." But I replied by saying, "Well, that's just bad etiquette." It then continues like this for a bit, and I accuse her of being rude, but she accuses me of using my male privilege. Eventually, she finishes her set and then she leaves. In every single gym I've worked out at, it would be considered rude to bogart multiple pieces of equipment while others have to wait. I lived abroad for years before this, but is this still the case in the United States gym culture? Am I the jerk for leaning on a nearby wall and just waiting, rather than going and stretching or running on the treadmill? Because right now I seriously seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I can confidently say that the lady in this story is super entitled and very rude. Seriously, you can't just take up a bunch of space and be like, no, I don't want you near me, back off. Like, this is not a private gym. This is a place that anybody in the apartment building can go to and work out. So for her to be like, no, you can't be over here, that's not allowed, while also making a big fuss over you standing there and just waiting for this idiot to be done, like, that is so weird and honestly so toxic. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, and in my opinion, you were completely in the right for standing there and waiting for this idiot to stop. My girlfriend has been secretly visiting my awful parents who mistreated me my entire childhood. And after I found out about this, I honestly felt like my whole world crumbled down, as I am now reconsidering my entire relationship, leaving me in a spot where I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I did not have an easy time growing up. My childhood was so messed up that I sort of just put it all in a mental box, and I left it at that. Needless to say, I left my parents as soon as I could, and then went no contact and haven't seen them ever since then. There are several reasons I went no contact, and my girlfriend seemed understanding enough when I told her that I didn't even want to tell my parents about their grandson. I don't want my son around these people, I don't want my girlfriend around these people, and above all, I would never leave any child alone around these people. My girlfriend doesn't know about what exactly my father did to me and my sister, but I also feel like she doesn't have to know in order to respect my wishes. Well, yesterday, my sister texted me a picture of our parents' dog, and in the background were my son's shoes. Our mother uploaded it on Facebook, where I have them blocked, and while my sister recognized the shoes, she was mainly concerned about them even having a kid over there. My girlfriend and I both work. She only works part-time, but we always have someone to watch our child, either my sister or my girlfriend's family. So it's not like she had to bring him there to have someone watch him, meaning that this was a deliberate decision that she should have made with me. I talked to my son about it, and it turns out he's been there several times unsupervised alone with my father. Apparently nothing happened, but I was understandably angry and confronted my girlfriend as soon as she got back home, which of course led to a huge fight. She left crying and went to her parents' house, and later her mother came to pick up my son, which I refused, which then led to another fight with her mom as well. My girlfriend then texted me, asking to talk later today, and I know I can't keep my son from her, and I definitely don't want to, but I do not want to go into our conversation unprepared, so honestly, any advice is welcome. I also feel betrayed and still very angry, and I'm honestly ready to break up over this, but my son is very upset and anxious because he heard our fight, and right now I'm just completely at a loss and I don't know how to handle this situation. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to their situation. Here's what they had to say. First of all, I want to thank you all for the comments and the input. I didn't feel like I could even think when I made my initial post, so it was good getting some different perspectives. Now, I did write that my girlfriend and I would talk that same day that I posted, but we didn't because I needed to sort myself out, and I think she did too. She's been avoiding me ever since and requested we talk at her parents' place, but I didn't want that, so we didn't get to talk until yesterday while my son was at my sister's. Apparently in September last year, my mother reached out to my girlfriend on Facebook asking how me and my son were doing. My mother is a very intelligent woman, but also highly manipulative. She convinced my girlfriend to visit them because my father is ill. My girlfriend said that she didn't tell me because she knew I would say no, and she wanted to see what kind of people my parents were. She brought our son but didn't leave him alone at first, but their visits got fairly regular, and she became comfortable with leaving him with my parents. Now he seemed fine, and he even seemed to like it there, so she didn't feel like he was in any kind of danger. The first time she left my son fully alone was when she went Christmas shopping. I think from what I had told her about my childhood home, she expected a house of nightmares, but according to her, the place was clean and fixed up. The dog was healthy and my parents were nice. The thing is that she knew something happened to my sister. I never told her what happened to me, which I now see I probably should have, but she doesn't see terrible people like them everywhere like I do. And when my son didn't report anything negative, she saw no issue taking him and leaving him there again. So it's pretty clear to me that she doesn't know anything about being mistreated as a kid, or even what to look out for. I don't understand how she could think that she'd be able to spot any of the signs with this little knowledge. My father has been in contact with children most of my life, and while I don't know if he's done anything to them, my sister always said that he knew how to make children feel at ease. Both of my parents are very methodical and calculating, so I don't blame her for believing them, but I blame her for not discussing this with me. She went to visit them after talking to my mother for a few days, and meanwhile, I've lived there for 17 years, and somehow she thought that she knew better than me. Even when I told her some details about my childhood, she still tried to push for supervised visits, saying my father was ill, and my son had every right to meet his grandparents, which I don't agree with at all. The thought of children being around these people makes me sick, but she seems reluctant to agree to officially limit their visitation rights. I would need her agreement, however, unless I won a court case of some kind. I also tried to explain why this felt like such a betrayal, because this is not just about putting my son in danger, it's also about her going behind my back for months. I mean, what else would she be capable of? Then she told my son to keep the visits a secret, which is exactly what people who mistreat kids would say. Now, she did apologize, saying that she made an honest mistake and feels like I'm blowing this out of proportion and that her parents think so too. Besides, our son is fine, and I shouldn't have raised my voice at her mother and should be more grateful for what her parents have done for me and us over the years. Which, by the way, I do owe them, sure, but that doesn't mean that they can overrule my parenting decisions or get so involved. I feel like neither her nor her parents trust me or take me seriously, and it's so frustrating when the mother of your son is pretty much actively working against you. I don't think she can even grasp how terrified I was when I talked to my son about their visits. Again, I know it's my fault for not telling her everything, but I never thought she would do something like that. My past never really affected me much anyways. I never felt like there was ever a reason for her to know all the details. Honestly, I don't know if anything is resolved. I know why she made the choices she made, but I don't think she understands why I was and still am upset. She left after bringing up her mother because I got angry, and I know I shouldn't have, but I reveal something so big and I just don't get taken seriously. I want us to work, and she agreed that it would take a lot of work to get back to before all of this, which I'm not sure is even possible. I apparently deeply upset her, and I scared our son, and I angered her family. And part of that is true. I never wanted to fight in front of my son. I think for me emotionally, all feelings for her vanished the moment I found out, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I wish we could make it work for his sake, but I don't want him to grow up with dysfunctional parents or with his parents fighting every day. So if this doesn't work out, I will need to get a lawyer. I'm willing to put in the work needed for us to stay together, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. We were so young when we started dating and had our son, and I'm not sure if I ever thought about us staying together forever. I only stayed because I was living with them, and then I stayed because I didn't want to be an awful teenage dad, abandoning my son and the girl that I loved, because I really did love her, I think. Also, I am partially responsible for her being pregnant in the first place. As for my son, I have talked a lot to him these past few days, and I've taught him about boundaries and what's okay and what isn't, so I just hope it's true that nothing happened. He has also apparently not seen anything inappropriate. Our fight did get to him though, and he knows I was sad and knows his mom is too, and I hope him and I talked it out enough, and that my girlfriend gets to talk about this with him too. We might just sit down with him or something, but honestly, I need to figure this out because right now I don't know what to do. Wow, this is a big one. Like seriously, this is really messed up, and I absolutely side with the original poster. Like seriously, what was the girlfriend thinking? She had no right to bring these people back into the original poster's life, especially when he said, hey, we've gone no contact and I don't want to deal with them for like some really bad reasons. Like if I had a significant other who said that, I would be like, hey, I hear you loud and clear, don't even worry about it. I will never contact them, we will have a happy life without those people involved. Because my God, this is so messed up. So honestly, I think you're going about this in the best way you possibly could, because I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would be very pissed off. And hopefully for the sake of your son, all of this works out in his favor, because he does not deserve to be stuck in the middle of all of this. An entitled Karen freaks out on me in the worst case of road rage I've ever seen in my life. So I decided to get some revenge by humiliating her at her job in front of all of her coworkers. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I live in the country. I was driving my baby to daycare early one beautiful spring morning in 2023, and the daycare is located near the town center in a fancy little village. There is a large, widely spaced four-way stop sign at the village entrance, about half a mile from the daycare, and most of the time it's very quiet and never really busy. On said morning, I was talking to my baby about the day. I went through the stop intersection, and shortly thereafter, I noticed a car tailgating me very aggressively and honking their horn. Now this is while we're going through a residential village at like 20 miles an hour, but I just brushed it off, thinking the person was just in a rush or had a bad morning of some kind. I thought nothing of it because I was about to get out of their way by pulling into the daycare's driveway. Well, suddenly they turned in after me, so I got a little bit scared. But once they pulled in next to me, that's when I really got scared. I unbuckle my baby, talking to her calmly because I don't know what's about to happen, when suddenly this entitled Karen jumps out of her car and starts screaming at me at full volume. Mind you, it's 7:45 in the morning on a beautiful day, so I was so surprised. Apparently, I cut her off at the four-way stop sign, and I replied by saying, oh, so that's why you were tailgating me, which is an inflammatory remark, I guess, but honestly, I had just figured it out, and I was congratulating myself. I didn't intend to be rude. I immediately apologized, saying I didn't realize, but she kept screaming at me in front of my baby, and she literally wouldn't stop. I was completely confused as to why she was so so upset. I will admit that I'm not a morning person, so I wasn't firing on all cylinders. I then apologized a few more times, and then I said, "It's a beautiful day, let's just move on." I then turned my back on her and I went inside, which I guess was the wrong choice to make. Well, it turns out she was another parent at the daycare, and she went to the center director to complain about my driving, saying that I made it unsafe for her. I then got called in and they warned me to drive safer, and I was so mad. She went out of her way to make my life harder at my kid's school, so I knew that I would never forget that lady's face. Well, fast forward 2 years, and I have a doctor's appointment in the same town, and when I walk into the office, guess who's in the receptionist area? Yeah, it's the lady that screamed at me. She knew too because she wouldn't make any eye contact. I took the clipboard and I seethed for a little bit while I filled it out, trying to talk myself down, but that simply didn't work. So it turns out I'm incredibly petty because I definitely handed the clipboard back to her and I said loudly for the whole office to hear, "Oh, I know you. Do you remember that one time when you screamed at me at 7:45 in the morning all about a stop sign? I know I cut you off by accident, but I apologized, and it was super lame of you to scream at me in our kid's school parking lot about it. That's what pathetic people do." Well, the whole time I did this lady just stared at her keyboard. Her coworker didn't though, and neither did the other people in the waiting room. They absolutely loved it, and honestly, so did I. Man, I love it when there's like a long play of some kind of like petty revenge, because the lady in the story who screamed at the original poster absolutely had it coming. Listen, in my opinion, it is just not safe out there to approach someone about some kind of road rage incident. It really could end poorly and somebody could get hurt or worse, especially in today's day and age. Like honestly, people are crazy out there. Who knows who you're actually approaching on the street, let alone at a daycare of all places. But good for you for making this lady know exactly how rude she was being, even though you had to do it a few years later, because the way she treated you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I recently found out that my family had been bullying my fiance for years, and now after it got exposed in front of the entire family, they are now begging for my forgiveness. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my fiance and I have been dating for 6 years. We had met each other's families several times throughout our relationship, and I thought that everything was going well on both ends. His mom and I loved each other's company, and I thought my family liked my fiance until recently. He had proposed to me 3 months ago, and we immediately started planning our wedding. I wanted to organize a dinner with his mom and my family, but my fiance strongly opposed, and this shocked me because he's usually so soft-spoken. I didn't push any further because he didn't feel like talking about it, and we planned to tell both of them separately. We invited my parents and siblings to my house last week, and we told them about the proposal. Well, my family was silent, with my mom breaking the silence by asking me to go to another room so that they could talk. We then had a small argument, and that's when I found out that my family didn't approve of my fiance. She said they didn't say anything to me until now because they thought I would break up with him. When I asked why, she called him womanish and too feminine. I yelled at her and she yelled back, but we stopped when we heard fighting in the dining room. When I ran in, I saw my fiance punching my dad over and over, while my brothers and sisters tried to pull him off. I then helped my siblings pull my fiance off, and I tried to calm him and my dad down. My dad and siblings told me that he just started attacking my dad out of nowhere, but my fiance said that my dad had called him the F slur, you know, the one for gay men, and then made a joke of my fiance's dead father. Now, I believe my fiance, and I told them what my mom had said. A bigger argument broke out, and I kicked them out of my house. I talked with my fiance, and he said this wasn't the first time that my family insulted him. He told me that they would belittle him for his feminine hobbies and would poke fun at his lower paying job. He said that when we would go to my family, they would wait until I wasn't around to tell him those things, and that he just ignored it up until this point. The next morning, I called my family, and I told them about everything I found out. Now, they tried denying it, but my second oldest brother didn't seem to care and said that they did it to prove that there was something wrong with him. I then hung up the phone and I ignored their efforts to reach me afterwards. They apologized and said that they were trying to protect me. They then invited me to family counseling and said that they would try and be better. They even tried apologizing to my fiance, but he didn't accept it. Now, I want to believe their apologies and let them back into my life, but I also don't want to hurt my fiance. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I gotta be completely honest. Either you're completely oblivious to how your fiance is actually feeling and the way he's being treated by your family, or your fiance is a complete psychopath who snapped all of a sudden for no reason. Like, I'm willing to bet that your fiance actually was being made fun of by your family, and you either turned a blind eye to it or you just were not paying attention. And both of those scenarios are really awful for your fiance, because you said it yourself. Him freaking out and punching your dad in the face is so out of character for him, it's honestly not even even funny. So in my mind, someone like that is not going to get pushed to the brink of their sanity unless something seriously wrong has been going on. So not only is your entire family awful and so toxic, but also it seems like everybody across the board sucks at communicating. And I'm talking about you, your fiance, and the rest of your family. Allegedly, this has been going on for years, and your fiance didn't say anything about it. Like if I had a partner whose family was doing that to me, the first second that happened, I would have gone to my fiance and been like, hey, wait a second. These people are being really mean to me. You need to make this stop. I wouldn't put up with it for several years and not say anything. Also, your family is pretty awful as well. They literally have been trashing this guy to his face while you're not around, and then have decided not to say anything, and only once you've gotten engaged are they like, okay, we wanted to talk to you about this. And it's like, no, you didn't. You didn't actually care at all. You just wanted to put my fiance down, and that's it. So truly, everybody across the board in this story really sucks, and hopefully this works out for you guys in some kind of way. Because in my opinion, your fiance does not deserve this level of negligence or verbal mistreatment, because the way he's been treated is absolutely unacceptable. My toxic assistant manager treated me and the rest of my coworkers like crap, even going as far as telling me to shut my mouth and do as I'm told. So one day I decided to maliciously comply by following her orders exactly as described, and thus proving once and for all how stupid she truly was. Here's what happened. When I was in college, I worked as a baker in a well-known regional bagel and sandwich chain. At some point, an assistant manager transferred to my store who was the stereotypical petty, power-tripping, ridiculous manager that you would find in this type of job. Her specialty was yelling at and berating employees in front of customers, and I will never not believe that she enjoyed publicly humiliating people. It was tolerable all the way until I agreed to cover a shift at the store she transferred from. Someone there asked me what I thought of her, and I thought I was careful, as I just commented that she had very high expectations, which were very hard for some people to meet, and that was the understatement of the year. Well, this lovely person passed this back to her, which put me at the top of her list. What followed was a series of write-ups for egregious violations, like missing some seeds when mopping the floor, or not emptying a garbage can that had a single paper towel in it. Luckily for me, I was one of the few people there certified to run the ovens. My opportunity for malicious compliance came one Saturday lunchtime when a charter bus pulled up to our store. Now, I had seen this before, and I knew that a bus full of people buying sandwiches is equivalent to 2 to 3 people bringing bagels to work, which is barely a blip compared to morning rush. I went to the counter to help, and Miss Assistant Manager yells at me to get back into the kitchen and start baking more. I tried to tell her we were fine, but as soon as I opened my mouth, she yelled at me and said, "Shut your mouth, do what I told you, and don't stop baking until I say stop." Now, 2 important things to know here. First of all, when I took my certification test, they told me I passed it with the second fastest time on record for the local franchise. The second thing is that the ovens were adjustable. You could turn up the heat to speed up the cooking process. I went back to the baking area and I cranked up the oven and I baked as fast as I possibly could. The ovens had 8 shelves holding about 48 bagels each. Eventually, I had them all filled up and was only slowed down by how fast I could cook them and how fast I could send them up front. Miss Assistant Manager was down at the register this entire time and was not paying attention to the stock levels in the bagel bins, but I kept bringing out shelf after shelf. At one point, the bins were overflowing, so I had to start putting them in extra bins that we had in the back, and once those were full, I started putting them in and on metal trays. The crowd finally died down, and Miss Assistant Manager finally looks at the bagel bins and realizes she never told me to stop. She then asked me if there was anything still baking, and I informed her that every shelf was full. She then lost it and started yelling that I was getting fired until multiple people pointed out that I just did exactly what she asked. The store manager ended up coming in, and pretty much everyone told them the exact same story. Mrs. Assistant Manager had to bag up the mountains of excess bagels and then drive them to all the other stores in the area just so they wouldn't go to waste. Even after that, we still exceeded the allowed wastage for the day, and she was the one that got reprimanded. Now, she still yelled at everyone after that, but she was, at the very least, a bit more careful with her wording. Yeah, I can't stand managers who act like that, who come in with this awful attitude and treat you and the rest of the employees like garbage. Like, seriously, that's so rude, it's not even fair. And the way she talked to you, like, my God. Anyone who would tell me to shut my mouth and do what I'm told, that's the second we're gonna have problems. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. And this is literally just a bagel and sandwich shop. Like, it's not that important of a job. So for her to act like this is honestly just some weird power trip. But overall, I love the way you handle this, because I think in a roundabout way, you showed this lady exactly how stupid she was acting. An entitled jerk screams at me and the rest of my staff after he doesn't get exactly what he wants, shouting that he wants his accounts canceled right now as he's not getting the service that he demands. So I decide to maliciously comply by doing exactly that and canceling all of his accounts, resulting in one of the biggest blowups I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work as a support manager for a company that sells credit card readers and other services for processing money. Our story starts with a phone call that one of our newest staff members received. The caller does not introduce themselves and instead loudly demands to speak to no less than the CEO of the company and will not give any information aside from his repeated demands and some indirect swearing. Normally, this would earn them a terminated call, but I want to know who has the guts to scream at my staff, so I have him transferred over. Having had some of these calls before, I introduce myself with a very fancy title and ensure the caller that whatever his support needs are, I can handle them without any kind of issue. The CEO is busy at the moment and I'm the next person in line in the support organization. Now this is not entirely true, but it really works to calm people down and get them to tell me what is actually the problem. Now the caller in this story is called Steve, and not just any Steve mind you, but Steve, the owner of Steve's Cafe. And not just one Steve's Cafe mind you, but the owner of all 7 of Steve's Cafe. Steve is apparently offended that he was given to me and not the CEO like he demanded. He is the owner, you see, and he needs to talk to the owner and not me. Because, you know, I don't own 7 cafes and I certainly don't own my company. So I just simply cannot understand Steve's needs and can't make the hard choices he needs made. But I again assure him that I do have the position and authority to do anything he requires. I am the manager of the support department. I can make any changes that he requires. I can set up new accounts or order new devices, anything that he might need. He only needs to tell me his problem and I can provide the solution. I will support him. Well, his next words are immediate and aggressive. Can you cancel my accounts? Well, yes, I can. I inform him that we need a written request to cancel, and I also try to inquire why he needs to cancel his accounts. This is a standard procedure. If he wants to cancel his accounts, then we close his accounts, but any feedback is also useful. Is he leaving because our product was bad? Because our service was bad? Or because he found a better deal? But before I can even get a few words out of him, he shouts again, "Have the CEO call me. He has my number." And then he disconnects the call. Well, I report this up the chain, and I get back that no email means no cancellation. But still, the bosses need to know. First thing the next morning, I get invited to an emergency meeting by the CEO, as well as a few other important people. We go over what happened, and then I'm shown an email. Steve managed to find the CEO's internal email address and sent him an email complaining about one of his 7 stores having a horrible time with the product. He is demanding no less than the cancellation of all of his accounts and a refund for 3 months of payments he has made for each, as the product is totally unusable. I checked the logs and the problem location does indeed have a problem. That started yesterday morning. They are not down, but they are having a bad time. There are no emails or calls informing us, just the screaming cancellation request. I send over the call logs and we listen to Steve scream, as well as curse at the support agent before he got sent over to me. And then I hear the words that cue my malicious compliance. Cancel my accounts. The meeting goes quiet. The CEO has spoken, and we cancel all 7 accounts and shut down services. They then start their day with devices that do not work. But once the calls come in, the CEO makes another decision. They say that the account is canceled and that we need to follow procedure. So each manager calls me frantically, explaining that nothing is working, but the staff apologetically tell them that their account was canceled per their owner's email and that we can no longer provide any support. Shortly thereafter, the owner calls in and once again is screaming to turn them back on, uncancel them this instant, get the devices working because he is losing money. I check with the CEO and after receiving a nod, I say, well, per your request made over the phone yesterday and your email this morning, your accounts have been canceled. At this point, Steve just gets madder and says he didn't mean to actually cancel them. He just wanted to let us know what would happen if we didn't fix his issue. He then continues to yell. I let the CEO know and at his request, I transfer Steve to his office phone. Now, I wish there was a satisfying ending to this story, but Steve and our boss did talk it over. Steve was informed that his behavior was unacceptable, and Steve admitted that he was expecting expedited service and possibly a discount when he threatened to cancel, and basically said he didn't really want to cancel his accounts. He just wanted support to take him seriously and transfer him up the chain so that he could get faster, better service. Now, obviously, there was no real apology, though both I and the initial support agent were told that Steve would behave himself from now on and to report if he didn't. Services were then resumed and all 7 locations were opened a bit late. The one location that did have issues yesterday got on the phone with a support agent and were sorted out in a reasonable amount of time, and all is right in heaven and earth. But I do hope Steve learned that threatening to cancel your account sometimes leads to you actually getting your account canceled and not some kind of discount like you were expecting in the beginning. Okay, I'm gonna say what we're all thinking. I hate Steve and I hate the CEO. I hate Steve because he actually got away with treating the staff like garbage, and I hate the CEO because he literally let this slide. That guy is a massive piece of crap and I can't believe he allowed that to happen. Seriously, you let your staff get treated like garbage garbage and you allowed this guy to come back in as some kind of client of yours? Like, do you not care about the well-being of the people who are literally taking care of your business? Like, that is disgusting. I can't stand managers who act like that or customers who try to be like, oh, you should cancel my accounts. I can't stand you. Only to then freak out and be like, well, I didn't actually mean it. Why'd you actually think I was serious? You know, it's not like you were screaming and like cursing on the phone at people. That wouldn't be a good indicator that you're pissed off and you want to cancel your service. It's like, come on, like that is so weird and so dumb, in my opinion, and I really think this is true. The way you treat people in customer service, whether you're the owner or a customer of some kind, absolutely reflects the kind of person you are on the inside. And trust me, I get it. I know that everybody has a bad customer service experience where the person trying to serve you is not doing a good job and they really suck at their job. They're lazy, they don't care, and they're just not doing what they need to do. But I would seriously argue that that's just an outlier situation and that most people just want to do their job, get money, and go home. Like at the end of the day, we're all just trying to make rent. And if you treat me with respect, I guarantee you will get it back. That's my philosophy at least. Maybe you feel differently. And if you do, please leave a comment down below. I would love to hear what you have to say. But overall, I think Steve sucks and so does the CEO. And the fact that this situation didn't result in Steve getting banned, in my opinion, is incredibly upsetting. Am I the jerk for walking away from a friend-owned business after they literally tried to take advantage of my work while giving me no respect and no reward for my efforts? Because right now they're saying I'm a bad friend, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been friends with someone for a while now, and they came up with an idea for an app and asked me to develop it. They are handling the business side of things, while I'm responsible for the entire technical department. At first, I was willing to help out, but things quickly started to feel off when we discussed how we would split the rewards. The situation became really frustrating when they suggested I would only receive a small portion of the rewards for my work, while they took the majority of it. They argued that since the idea was theirs, they deserved more. I felt like they didn't understand the amount of work that goes into developing an app, and it was as if they were devaluing my skills while saying things like, I could just learn this on my own, or even saying, I can handle the business side, and that's the important part. It honestly really bothered me. They seemed to believe that the idea that they came up with was somehow worth all the effort and technical skill I'd put into the actual building of it. Over time, I started feeling completely unappreciated, like they thought of me as more of a tool to execute their idea rather than an equal partner in the process. Every time I brought up concerns, they would brush them off or act like I was overreacting. They made me feel small, like I was the one who should be grateful for the opportunity to help them. They even made it sound like I should just be happy to do the work and accept whatever I was given, no matter how unfair. Eventually, I realized that I wasn't being treated with respect, and so I decided to walk away. Now, they're saying I'm a bad friend and that I let them down, but honestly, I couldn't stay in a situation where I was being undervalued and disrespected. So seriously, am I the jerk for not accepting a deal that would basically leave me working for peanuts while they walk away with all the credit and reward? Because right now, I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Oh man, this is so toxic, it's not even funny. These people literally took advantage of your skill set just to use you to make money on their side of things. And it's ironic because these people say, oh yeah, we're gonna handle the business side of things. And it's like, oh, okay, you're gonna handle that side of it, but what about my side of it? You literally would have nothing if I didn't develop the app in the first place. Like, you're the one with the technical skills, and if anything, you're the one that could learn their business side of things and not the other way around. Not in a million years could they do what you're doing. That's why they brought you on board, because they know they can't and don't want to do it. And that really is the truth in my opinion. So the fact that they're not giving you more credit for what you're literally building for them, like that is honestly insane in my opinion, and that goes so much further than just putting your name on the application. This involves a monetary split, and guess what? You have every right to expect more out of them. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for walking away from these idiots, because in my opinion, they 100% were taking advantage of you, and you definitely did not deserve that. An entitled jerk demands that I pay for my community college class the next day simply because they were too lazy to process it right this second. So I decided to get some petty revenge by paying for my class in hundreds of dollars worth of nickels. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that yes, this was 100% petty, and honestly, I have a pretty good reason for it. I went to a community college for a while, and as part of my degree plan pathway to transfer to the university, I needed a specific class, but the community college that I went to didn't offer it, whereas another community college in the same district did. The problem was my scholarship didn't cover it up front, so I had to pay the tuition for the one class and get reimbursed later. So I went to go enroll in the class because it was such an obscure class and I had to go deal with it in person. Well, they made you go through several steps, meaning that you had to see an advisor, then they would tell you whether you were doing the right thing for your degree plan, and this advisor advisor was a moron. I actually wondered if she could even feed herself with a spoon without putting her eye out. After she was finally able to locate the course, which by the way took some difficulty since she kept looking it up in the wrong area, her response when she pulled it up on the computer was to say, "Why do you want to take that class? That looks really hard." Even though I had already explained twice what I was doing and why. After some completely unnecessary haggling, she finally signed off on me being able to enroll. So after that, I just needed to visit the cashier and pay. But the cashier was every bit as stupid as the advisor, possibly even more so. When I explained that I was paying for a single course, she tried to tell me that I needed to be enrolled full-time and that she couldn't do anything about it. I literally had to go get an actual note from the advisor that gave me an override, even though it wasn't necessary, to let me give them actual money. When I got back to the cashier, she looked at the paperwork and seemed very upset. Apparently, I was making her have to do things like, her job. She said that I should change my major because having to do the extra work on her end was too hard, and she didn't feel like doing it. And it's like, oh, okay, thank you for your unsolicited opinion. She then told me they couldn't accept payments that day for some made-up reason, and that I had to come back the next day. So after that, I decided I was going to annoy her. So in the morning, I went to the bank and I got the entire tuition in nickels, and this was roughly like $300. Then I proudly walked into the cashier's office with a box full of nickels that I had gotten about halfway through unwrapping. The cashier was there and said that now she could take my money. So I picked up the box of nickels and I said it was all there. Well, the look on her face was priceless. If you could capture equal parts anger, disgust, irritation, as well as sadness and despair wash over her in about 2 seconds, all after her smug look when I first walked up, it would have been a work of art. I had to wait around while she counted the nickels, and it was honestly completely worth it. Once she finished, I got my receipt, and I left her wondering what she was going to do with all of those nickels. And like I said, it was incredibly petty, but in my opinion, it was completely worth it. Okay, honestly, I can kind of see why the original poster would do this, because seriously, that is so annoying. These people repeatedly told you, this is taking too much work, you can't do this today. You should change your major, I don't like this. Or just literally not wanting to do your job at all. Like, my God, I'm so sorry that you have to do your job today, but I really want to get this done. And the fact that you're making this difficult is making me go insane. So seriously, in my opinion, I'm so glad that you paid in nickels, because this is something I've dreamed of doing for a company that I don't like. And I just love the fact that I saw this in action, because this truly was incredibly satisfying. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled boss demands that we only dress in business attire, despite the fact that all other departments on Friday get to wear blue jeans. So we decide to maliciously comply by not only embarrassing her, but also making sure that she never does anything like this ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened many years ago. I worked for a top US banking institution. In our building, all the other departments were allowed to wear blue jeans on Fridays, but my manager decided that our department had to wear business attire on Fridays. To be clear, we had no customer-facing presence, and also our department processes check deposits from ATMs, and they came in mesh bags from the armored courier. They were usually quite filthy and were frequently wet in bad weather. So when our manager told us that we couldn't wear blue jeans on Fridays like every other department, the entire team was upset, and this is where our malicious compliance came into play. The next Friday, I went to my closet, and I found the most mismatched outfit I could possibly put together, but also sticking completely to the business attire requirement. And we are talking pastel floral print shirt with pants with bold colored stripes. So I put it on and I proudly walked into the office. Now my manager just happened to be on vacation that week, so nothing was said about my ridiculous mismatched outfit. But fast forward to next Friday, and I once again chose the most hideous combination of an outfit that I could possibly put together. Once again, I walked into the office with my head held high, confident in my business attire. Well, imagine my surprise as my boss walks in and sees everyone in their various hideous outfits. The look on her face was absolutely priceless. All 15 of us in hideous outfits, but all meeting the business attire dress code. She then pulled all of us into a meeting and told us that our attire was entirely inappropriate for a business environment and that she would have to write each and every one of us up. I then asked her to pull out the company handbook and read the definition of what it said as business attire. Well, she read it, and it stated something like a clean and pressed business attire consisting of slacks, skirts or dresses, and clean pressed shirts and blouses. It went on to say something like no blue jeans, no t-shirts, no ripped or clothing with holes in them, no sleeveless shirts, and no athletic or gym shoes. I then asked her where in the guidelines does it say anything about whether the outfits matched or not. Well, she couldn't find anything and said that she would have to contact HR to discuss with them what her options were to write us up. Well, needless to say, none of us were written up. She did, however, say we still needed to dress in business attire. Word quickly spread to other departments about her forcing us to wear business attire. And the next week, 2 departments around us decided that they would also dress up in hideously matched clothing. The managers of those departments quickly got in touch with our manager and put pressure on her as they didn't like how their employees were dressing. Our manager called us into a meeting and told us that we could wear blue jeans on Fridays going forward, which to me is absolutely a huge win. I love this for so many reasons, but most of all, you got back at this lady for a stupid rule. Seriously, it's Friday and you don't work in any kind of customer-facing position, so there really is no reason why you can't just wear blue jeans in the back as you're looking at checks and all this other stuff. Like, she could have easily bent the rules and been like, okay, wear blue jeans on Fridays, it's not a big deal, and then that would be that. Like, seriously, just give it a rest. So good for you for following the rules, but also showing her how stupid she was acting, because honestly, her attitude was incredibly annoying. Am I the jerk for not wanting to come to my mom's house, all because my sister's fiance is always there? Because right now I'm honestly very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female and I just want to know if I'm overreacting about this situation. So for a bit of backstory, my sister and her fiance got engaged in April of 2024. She comes home nearly every weekend and he always comes with her. I lived at home from January 2024 until October of 2024, all while I was finishing my clinical rotations. My dad had cancer and life was truly a mess. I didn't really notice then how much I didn't like having my sister's fiance around every weekend, because at the time I was living at home and was able to relax the rest of the week away from him. I moved an hour away for a new job in October of 2024 and would come to my parents nearly every weekend because of my dad and his condition. Sadly, he passed away this January and my home visits have been much less frequent, which has caused some tension with my mom while also having to deal with the stress of the drive. I was super close with my dad and I wanted to spend as much time with him as I could just in case. I went home this weekend to visit and I already wasn't feeling great because I've had a sinus infection all week and I jacked my knee up at work. I knew my sister would be home this weekend, but she made it sound like her fiance wouldn't be there. Well, surprise, surprise, when I walked in the door, I saw him and instantly I felt this irritation that I hadn't felt in a while. I was nice and cordial, of course, but I was truly disappointed knowing that he was there because there was so much I wanted to talk to my sister and mom about alone, primarily related to my dad. Now, he's not a bad guy, but he is super sarcastic and not a very touchy-feely kind of guy, so I'm not comfortable sharing any of those feelings in front of him, and I can barely bring myself to talk privately with my mom in my parents' bedroom, all because of my dad. The other thing is that he's not nice to my dog at all. He yells at him a lot and acts all annoyed with him all the time, and my dog can be annoying, but he's generally well-behaved. He just asks for pets sometimes, and this annoys her fiance. Well, I started feeling physically worse and felt the trip was overall a waste since I got no actual time with my mom and sister since they were busy doing wedding planning stuff. The wedding is in May, so I'm obviously not mad at that, and they were getting their hair done and so on and so forth. Well, I just decided I didn't feel good and I wanted to go back home. So I texted my mom that I was leaving and that I was sorry about the short notice. She then texted me later to see how I was doing, and I said I was feeling somewhat depressed and just sick in general. Now, I don't know why I did, but I also told her the stuff about my sister's fiance and how I didn't feel comfortable talking with him around or how he treats my dog. I told her that she'd have to come visit me from now on because I just don't like feeling uncomfortable in the place I used to live, and I want my dog to feel free to be a dog. Now, at this, she kind of made me feel bad, as she said that he was going to be family, but I told her that he's not family to me and he never will be, and I think it's then that I realized just how much I don't like him when I said that. My sister would be devastated if I ever told her that, so I won't do that, but I genuinely just don't like the guy. He is sarcastic, he can be rude often, he thinks that he's always right, and picks on my sister at times with things that bother her. They are always play arguing, and what I mean by that is that they argue but in an unserious tone of voice, but the content is the same every single time. I don't know, I think that some of these things have just been crawling under my skin for a while, and they're just bursting to the surface now. The other small thing that bothered me was he didn't show any emotion when my dad was in the ICU or at his funeral, and he knew him for 2 years. He just sat there emotionless as my sisters, mom, and I bawled our eyes out. I know people deal with things differently, but it still bothers me to this day. So truly, am I overreacting in this situation? And please be honest with me, because I don't want to lose my family relationships, all because I don't like one person that I won't have to be around all the time. I'm just feeling somewhat guilty, but also struggling to decide if this is just a boundary of mine or if I'm being too harsh. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I think you are overreacting just a little bit, and I think you may be grieving the loss of your father. And in that regard, I really am sorry for what you're going through, and I'm so sorry that he passed away. That really must be so hard, and I can only imagine going through that. And in my opinion, it kind of sounds like you're taking it out on this fiance, because from the sounds of it, the only bad thing he does is get annoyed by your dog. Like, sure, he's sarcastic and he doesn't really take things seriously, but that doesn't mean he's a bad person. And just because he didn't cry at the funeral or show like any emotion doesn't mean that he wasn't sad and that he didn't like care about your dad, because I'm sure that he did. And in regards to your sister and fiance having this weird relationship, honestly, it all just kind of seems harmless, and it seems like you just get annoyed by it really easily. But with all that in mind, if this guy really bothers you and you really don't like being around him, then that really is the one thing you can control. You can just choose to not be around him. And sure, that's easier said than done, I totally get it. But aside from him yelling at your dog, it doesn't seem like he's really doing anything to offend you or anything like that. So yes, in my opinion, I do think you're overreacting, and I really think this is something that can be easily solved. Am I overreacting for leaving my birthday dinner after my fiance announced a fake pregnancy? Here's what happened. Okay, so last night was my birthday dinner, and it was just a chill night with family and friends. Everything was going great until my fiance stands up to give a special toast. Then, out of nowhere, he says that we're so excited to announce that we are expecting. And it's like, wait a second, what are you talking about? When he said this, I just stared at him like he lost his mind because I am not pregnant. And at this point, he is smiling and my mom is crying and his family's clapping while I'm sitting there wondering what in the world is going on. I finally ask what he's talking about, and this man with a straight face says that he's been manifesting it and it's only a matter of time. Well, once he said that, I was done. I then got up and I left the restaurant. He then followed me all mad, saying I embarrassed him and I should have just gone along with it for the night. And now his family is blowing up my phone saying I ruined a beautiful moment. And it's like, seriously, what is that even about? So honestly, was I overreacting in this situation? Because right now I'm honestly still incredibly pissed off. Oh my gosh, no. First off, you did not overreact, but also that is a huge red flag. You mean to tell me that this guy at your birthday dinner seriously made a fake pregnancy announcement? Like, are you kidding me right now? What is going on? That is such a toxic thing and so unbelievably weird. Like, I do hope you've informed the family that yeah, he was lying and that you're not actually pregnant, because there's no reason for anyone to be like, oh, you ruined a beautiful moment. It's like, hey, stupid, I'm not pregnant. My fiance literally just lied to all of you. So no, you didn't overreact, and in my opinion, I think you did the right thing, because what he did to you was completely unacceptable. My mom expects my husband to reach out to her for her medical procedure, despite the fact that he's currently in South Korea, saying that he simply doesn't care, and that if he did, he would reach out in the way that she wants. And I'm honestly so annoyed that right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mom is getting a hip replacement tomorrow, but she always has medical procedures done, and this does happen pretty often. My husband and I are apart as we wait for our marriage visa to come through, and I'm very lucky I get to see him 3 times a year in his home country of South Korea, and I'm seeing him in a few weeks. From the previous times my mom has gotten procedures done, she always complains that my husband doesn't reach out to her. Last summer, she was in the hospital due to a stomach issue, and she asked if my husband knows. Now, I'm sorry, but why would I tell him about my mom being sick to her stomach and in the hospital? I told her no, and that it's her private medical business. She then freaked out and claimed that I'm embarrassed over her. And I'm sorry, but what will he do about this? He's not even in the same country as us. I was also in the ER last summer with high blood pressure issues, and of course my husband knew, and he was supportive through phone calls, FaceTime, and text messages. But he is in a different country, and there's nothing seriously that he can do about it. My mom told me just now that my brother's girlfriend wished her good luck on her procedure, and then complained that my husband didn't reach out to her. My husband did say to me over the phone that he wishes her good luck, and I told her just that, but she claims that I probably didn't even tell him. She also said he's doing this all wrong, and I said, well, you can either take the best wishes that he's sending your way, or just continue whining. She didn't say anything after that, so I'm hoping that's the end of it. But I don't know if I'm being rude and if my husband is wrong. I just don't know why every time she has a medical procedure that she wants my husband to know and judges him if he doesn't reach out to her. I'm very private about my medical history, and if I'm in the hospital or going to a doctor, I don't want everyone to know, but I guess we're different in that sense. I just hate the fact that she's criticizing my husband over what I think is the dumbest reason, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I completely agree with the original poster here, because the mom in this story sounds really weird. Like, why is she complaining about this? The original poster literally relayed his message over to her mom, so why is she getting so upset that he isn't calling her personally? Like, that is so weird. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but that just doesn't make any sense. Especially when the husband's in a different time zone. Like, the time you expect him to call you is probably like, what, 3 in the morning? So yeah, your mom is being super weird, and I think her behavior towards your husband is very childish. My entitled coworkers demand that I get them a new computer so that one of their interns can continue to do so well at their job. So I decided to maliciously comply by tricking them into giving them a system that that literally is worse than the one they were complaining about. And I'm honestly so glad that I ended up getting away with it. Here's what happened. So I used to be the systems admin, engineer, and everything at a company of 300 people. Most of them were remote salespeople with laptops, and most of the salespeople had unpaid interns in this training program that, to me, seemed like an absolute nightmare. The interns were provisioned with any computer that I could cobble together, and part of the program was getting the commissions enough to earn an office and a computer. It seems stupid to me, but not my policies. These things were mid-grade Dell workstations when they were new, and had long surpassed their useful life cycle. The president, the co-owner, the vice president, human resources, and my leadership will not allow new equipment allocation to the interns under any circumstance. Not even $10 keyboards that come with new computers. It has to be decommissioned from an employee or sales rep to get into the hands of the interns. Well, another quirk about this company is that your service priority was determined by your performance in sales, which meant that mentors would advocate for their interns, and there was constant squabbling over who got less crappy equipment, and nearly every sales rep was a self-important jerk. One rep was having a particularly good year, and one of his interns had one of the better crap boxes, but complained about it constantly. I already pull the RAM and swap processors whenever possible. So this rep, we'll call him John for the sake of the story, calls me into his office every week or so just to disparage me because I'm the one responsible for his intern being held back. It's also important to note that reps are allowed to pay for gear for interns if they want to pay for it, but you know what? They never do. Eventually, the company vice president, who is, by the way, a self-important jerk that the president liked but failed utterly as a salesperson, calls me into his office to discuss my attitude. But I'm extremely professional at work and I took the beating. The vice president knew the situation, but took John's side and ordered me to improve the situation in some way. Do something, anything to enable the success of the interns and make the sacrifices if I have to. So I thought, fine, let's do it. I had an off-brand computer case in my office that was gathering dust. It was there when I started and I had no idea where it came from. Over the weekend, I transplanted everything in the intern's workstation to the computer case. Since it was coming from a Dell workstation, I had to remove all the slides and parts that make the things easy to service, but you know what? I made it fit. It was a rush job and a monstrosity, but I got the build time for it. I had to fashion a metal shim to cover the holes that the main board didn't extend to, but it worked and it had the same insides. Oh, and because it was such a mess, I had to leave a stick of RAM out since it wouldn't fit. Oh, and I may or may not have accidentally dropped the processor that I didn't need to remove and had to put in another processor from another machine that was slightly slower. I carefully removed the Windows sticker from the old case and put it on the new case. So I got to work early on Monday and I plugged it in. A few hours later, I got called down to John's office and figured that I was in for it. The thing was even crappier than before, but in a different and not better container. But when I walked in, I saw that the intern was beaming, John was beaming, and the vice president was beaming. They thanked me for my hard work and gave me a $5 gift card for a coffee shop. And I'm honestly blown away by these people's stupidity. Yeah, that's honestly one of those situations where these people just wanted a shiny new box and they didn't actually know what they were looking for. Like seriously, these people are so dumb. They literally didn't realize that this computer was just as crappy as the other one, if not way worse based on what the original poster described. So good for you for getting one over on these people, because clearly they had no idea what they were talking about. Am I the jerk for forcing a woman to return the bag of cans that she stole out of the back of my truck, even though she was probably homeless and needed the money? Because after I told my friends about this situation, one of them freaked out on me about it. And now I'm starting to second guess if I did the right thing. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was out yesterday running errands, and I had a really big transparent bag of cans I was going to take to the bottle drop sitting in the bed of the truck. Well, I stopped to get lunch first, and when I came back out, the bags of cans were gone. So I drove towards the bottle drop, and sure enough, I saw a woman heading that way, lugging my bag of cans on the sidewalk. Well, I pulled over, and she clearly recognized my truck. I then accused her of stealing the cans from my truck, and she denied it. Well, that is until I said I was going to call the police, while also saying that the restaurant I was at likely caught her theft with their CCTV, so she can either admit that she stole them from me and return the cans, or I would call the cops. She then got angry and told me that money was tight right now, and it was just a bag of cans, but I told her that she didn't get to steal from me and play the victim, so it was either return the bag or I would call the cops. She tried to say the cops wouldn't care about a bag of cans, so I told her that we should find out. I was about to start dialing when she dropped the bag and then told me to go F myself. She walked away ranting and saying that I have no sympathy. I told my friends about this later, and one of their girlfriends absolutely went off on me. She went on a rant about how I didn't know what kind of situation that woman might have been in, and she could have been homeless for all I knew, so I should have just let her have the cans. We had a big argument and she left furious, and I was pretty sure I was in the right before, but now I don't know. So honestly, am I the jerk for what I did to this lady? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, maybe I'm alone on this part, but honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I do not believe that Thievery is right, and that woman had no right taking those cans out of the back of your truck. So no, you're definitely not the jerk because what she did was completely unacceptable. My middle school bully destroyed my self-confidence in a way that honestly devastated me. So I decided to get some revenge by literally turning the entire school against her in a way that lost her all of her friends, her status, and all of her popularity. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So my family moved to a new state when I was about to start middle school. It wasn't the first time that I had to start off a new year in a new school with none of my childhood friends, and it's never a fun experience, but this time was way different. This new school was a private school and it was small, and we're talking like 3 kids in my entire grade small. I went to a public elementary school before this, and I was very much the tomboy in the all-boys friend group, with a couple of less girly girl friends who also preferred things like video games and cool bugs. I'd always been pretty selective about who I made friends with, and before, I had plenty of other kids in my grade to choose from, but not here, because in this school, it was just 2 other girls, and we'll call them Hannah and Jessica for the sake of the story. Now, these 2 seem like pretty typical girls to me, and I'd seen their type before in elementary school. Hannah came off as a standard popular girl, though without the clique due to the population shortage, with Jessica serving as a sort of like one-person clique or henchman. Mostly, Jessica was just quiet and went along with whatever Hannah did. Now, given a choice, I definitely wouldn't have been friends with either of them, not because I had anything against them, but I just prefer to hang out with other kids who share my same interests. But I really didn't have a choice here. We were stuck together all day, 5 days a week, and I had no extracurriculars or young neighbors to befriend, so I just tried to make the best out of it. When birthdays or sleepovers happened, it would be me, Hannah, and Jessica, and it wasn't awful or anything like that. I had fun doing the stuff they liked, and I did my best to engage them with more universal interests, like drawing or info dumping about fairies or mythology, stuff like that. So basically, I became the slightly awkward second member of Hannah's posse. Things were okay for the first 2 years. On the second year, another girl joined our grade, and honestly, it did feel like Hannah and Jessica preferred the new girl to me, but I didn't mind as much, since I started making friends with a couple of the boys in the grade above ours, and some of the girls in the grade below me. She ended up only staying for 1 year though, and the year she left is when things suddenly changed. I came back from summer break for that last year of middle school, expecting things to be par for the course. The private school only taught up to 8th grade, so my friends in the grade above were gone, but we still hung out outside of school, and I even started dating one of them, not to mention that I still had friends in the grade below me. I assumed Hannah, Jessica, and I would all still be on friendly terms, but this was not the case at all. Suddenly, Hannah was treating me like her mortal enemy. She only talked to me to make snide or belittling comments, and every time I raised my hand in class to voice a thought or ask a question, she would scoff and roll her eyes, acting like whatever I just said was the stupidest thing she'd ever heard, and just disagreeing with or even arguing with me against everything. At one point, she even started acting like I was diseased or something like that, going to ridiculous lengths to avoid getting close to me or even touching me. I was a very outspoken and engaged student, and I loved to ask questions and talk to my teachers to learn more and discuss my thoughts, but the way Hannah was treating me was so demoralizing. I had boy bullies in elementary school who would tease me for things like my speech impediment and for hanging out with other boys and including the special education kids at lunch and recess. I have ADHD, and I had a really strong response to being rejected, and that meant I usually responded to that kind of bullying with aggression, and I got in a lot of trouble for beating up any kid who tried to bully me or my friends. But this was different though. All the things that Hannah did were these small, subtle things that I just didn't know how to react to, but they slowly chipped away at my self-confidence until eventually I just stopped raising my hand in class. I stopped speaking up and voicing my thoughts and opinions. I completely clammed up and went from a bright and confident extrovert to an uncertain and reserved introvert. It's a shift that honestly to this day I have not recovered from. I mean, girl bullying is on a different level, but at least I have solace of knowing that I got her back pretty good. As this was going on for the first half of the year, I was getting closer with my friends in the grades below me. The school was still small but expanding, so the 2 grades below ours had maybe a couple dozen kids all together, and they were all pretty intermingled with friendships because everyone just had to hang out together regardless of age difference due to the size of the school. Everyone sat together at lunch and hung out during recess, though the 8th graders had always gotten the first pick of the outdoor picnic tables when the weather was nice. And that's where Hannah and Jessica always sat, and whatever other kids felt like sitting outside that day would hang out with them. As time went on though, the other kids started noticing the way that Hannah was treating me. It was pretty blatant, at least after she started acting like I was some kind of leper. Hannah had never made much of an effort to really engage with the kids in the lower grades, usually just treating them more like an audience thanks to her stunted popular girl aspirations, and more the other kids in school started being turned off by her. I was so demoralized and silenced by Hannah that it took me a while to even realize that the other kids disliked her, and they were rallying around me. By that time, we were in the last quarter of school, and being surrounded by friends and people who agreed that Hannah was being horrible to me started to restore a little bit of my confidence, and it was then that I started to act. For the rest of the year, I started to be more vocal about all the things Hannah had said and done to me. I would tell my friends while they were hanging out with their friends, until the whole school wasn't just a bit put off by her. They knew just how much of an awful, pointless, mean girl she was being, and they were all fully against her. No one in the lower grades would talk to Hannah or Jessica anymore, and no one would hang out with them or sit with them at lunch, while I was always welcomed and surrounded by friends. One last detail about this school is that since it only went up to 8th grade, it made middle school graduation a much bigger deal than most other schools seem to. There were plans to rent out a small venue with flowers and snacks, and have a little party afterwards. And since it was just the three of us graduating that year, it was going to be pretty intimate and personalized to the three of us. Our families were all very involved in the planning, and we got dresses to wear under our little robes, and fancy graduation pictures taken beforehand and everything. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the year, basically the entire school had fully turned against Hannah, and Hannah and Jessica eventually just sat alone together during lunch and recess at the picnic tables because everyone refused to hang out with them. Now, Jessica had always gone along with Hannah with everything from day one, and even when we were friendly for the first couple of years, we had never talked a ton because she was mostly just very quiet. But that day, I came out of the lunchroom while Hannah was getting her food, and I sat down with Jessica. I said hi to her and I asked her how she was, and she was maybe a little weirded out and standoffish, but she just shrugged and said that she was fine. I told her how I know her and Hannah had been sitting alone, and I mentioned to her how mean Hannah had been to me, and how she wasn't really very nice to Jessica either, how Hannah always got things her way, and how she spoke for and over Jessica a lot of the time. Finally, I offered that if she wanted to, she could come and sit with me and my friends, that she deserved better friends, and that we would all be happy to have her. By the time Hannah got outside to the picnic tables, Jessica was gone, sitting inside with a table full of kids ready to welcome her and treat her like a friend and not like a henchman. I heard it secondhand from some other kids that Hannah apparently called her mom in tears, begging her to come and pick her up from school. She wasn't in class that afternoon, and I literally never even saw her ever again. She never came back to school, and she didn't show up to graduation, so it was just me and Jessica and our families there, with a third too many seats and snacks. I ended up going to boarding school for my first year of high school, so I lost touch with Jessica, but I made some incredible lifelong friends there who helped me open back up and realize a lot of my passions. I still second-guess myself a lot about speaking up, and I still have worries about coming off as stupid whenever I open my mouth, or people not caring about what I say. But knowing I ruined Hannah's graduation, and that I got her back for what she did to me, at the very least gives me a little bit of sweet satisfaction. Okay, as someone who got bullied a lot in this exact same manner, where it's really subtle and you can never pinpoint an incident or something like that, I really love this story and I love the outcome. Because seriously, Hannah in this story absolutely got exactly what she deserved. She lost everybody around her because of the way she's been treating people, and she finally realized that she was in the place of the people she was bullying. And that is so amazing to see, because in almost every situation, you never get to see this kind of revenge. You're never able to turn the dial the other way and turn this against the bully. It's usually the case where the bully gets away with it and nothing's ever done about it. And that, in my opinion, is so unbelievably unfair. Seriously, that really sucks, and I just can't stand when that happens. Because I don't know about you, but this can absolutely mess somebody up. And it also always happens in middle school. Seriously, what is with middle school? That age group, man, I'm telling you, people are so vicious at that age. So seriously, good for you for getting back at this bully, because the end result that she received, in my opinion, is exactly what she deserved, especially if she's going to be treating people in the way that she did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled sister got really mad at our mother after she defended me from some creeps at a bank, because right now I'm incredibly frustrated with her and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened on a day I had to take my truck back to the mechanic because it was running like crap. My former best friend was with me, and we decided to take a walk because the lobby at the mechanic shop was full with no seats available. While out walking along the sidewalk, we ran into a guy that was wearing a hood and had a black eye, and he was begging me for a lighter while holding half a cigarette. I told him I don't smoke, but he wasn't convinced and just kept asking me. Then he asked if there was some place he could get a lighter or matches for free. I pointed and suggested some place random for him to go, and then I just kept walking, but the guy kept walking ahead of us and repeatedly pointed at me while talking as if he was having a conversation with someone who wasn't there. Then he disappeared behind a building somewhere. My friend and I then went into a discount department store, and then by chance we ran into my mother. So we helped her out with her groceries and she gave us a ride. But her next stop was the bank, so we just waited in the car. I was looking at prices for car parts on my phone when suddenly there was a knock at my window. And when I looked up, it was the same guy from earlier. And this time he was accompanied by another guy who was sticking his head up against the driver's side window and asking for a ride. The guy was carrying an 18-pack of beer and saying that he'd give me 2 in exchange for a ride. But I was repeatedly telling him that it was not my car and not my decision. Now, I'm a fairly big guy, but I'm not super confrontational in situations like this. And I was just trying to get them to go away. Then suddenly, my mother appeared at the doors of the bank, yelling at them to get away from her car and to get away from her kids. The guy with the black eye started yelling at her, but she again told them to leave. But the guy was screaming at her like an angry 14-year-old, yelling that he didn't care. But my mother in turn repeatedly told him to shut up. All the while, the guy with a case of beer was trying to get the one with the black eye to stop it. And finally, after some time, they got him to start walking away. But he kept turning around to yell at my mother some more until he was finally across the street. The 2 guys disappeared behind some buildings and were eventually gone. I was so proud of my mother that day. She was 56 years old and she still went absolutely mama bear. But you know who wasn't happy about it? My sister, who looks for absolutely any excuse to blame our mother for anything. As soon as my sister found out, she started ranting about how our mother made a scene in public and was acting completely unhinged. I pointed out to my sister that if it had been her kids, she would have done the exact same thing. And while she denied this, I know it's true. My sister is no stranger to making scenes in public, especially when she's intoxicated, which was pretty much all the time. I mean, she's the one who's actually unhinged and has essentially lost all of her friends in the past 3 years because of it. In fact, she was so toxic, we had to evict her in late 2023. Anytime the incident where our mother scared off those creeps was even mentioned around my sister, she would go off and act like what our mother did was completely wrong, and she was wrong for even doing it in the first place. But not only is my sister a hypocrite, she was only doing that because it doesn't really matter what our mother does. She will find something negative about it, and then blow it out of proportion. She tried to make our mother the villain so she could lie to herself and think that she's not a bad person. But I've got news for you, sister. You are a bad person. A very bad person. The last time I saw my sister was a couple of weeks ago, and I kicked her off the property because she is not allowed to be here. She screamed at me for choosing our mother over her and said, "I hope she was worth it to you." And then she swore at me again as she drove off. But honestly, I'm still proud of my mother for the way she defended me because that situation was incredibly scary. Yeah, your sister is super weird. It sounds like she just doesn't like your mom for some dumb reason, and she's trying to find any reason possible to be like, "Oh yeah, look how bad of a person she is." And it's like, oh, okay, I get it. I see what's going on here. The sister is projecting her own weird insecurities onto the situation and trying to make the mom out to be a villain, when in reality, the sister is the bad person altogether. So yeah, I definitely believe the original poster when they say that their sister sucks, and I think you have a good mom who's willing to defend you in weird situations. Because honestly, what you dealt with that guy was really weird, and I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for taking an Uber home instead of sitting on a man's lap for over an hour and a half traveling back from the beach with friends? Because right now, my friend is calling me a massive jerk and that I ditched everybody instead of just going along with it. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my best friend, who we will call Sarah, recently got a new boyfriend who we will call James, and she is over the moon into him. Sarah is also one of the very few people that I hang out with. She recently met James's friend group, a group of guys, and they invited her to go on a beach trip with them. Sarah begged me to go with them and kept insisting I join even when I declined the offer about 4 times. But eventually, I just agreed to go to get her off my back about being sad and alone. Now, I was told that I would have a ride. Sarah and I were the last to be picked up, and when they pulled up, there were 4 guys in a 5-passenger car. Well, I see this as my way out, and I say, oh, well, it looks like there isn't enough room for the both of us. You can go enjoy the beach with your boyfriend. I don't mind staying behind. Sarah tells me that it isn't a big deal if she sits on James's lap to make it work, and immediately I feel on edge. It turns out James was the one driving and said he wouldn't trust anybody else to drive his car. He told me that I would be the one sitting on someone's lap because there's no way he would let Sarah do that. But the thing is, I don't know these guys at all. I pull Sarah aside and I tell her that I'm not comfortable, thinking that she would help me out or something like that. Instead, she encourages me, saying that she thinks I would have fun and maybe even get a date. She is so into James and has been talking about this trip nonstop for over a week. So I decided to just do it to make her happy. 2 of the 3 guys offer up their laps, and I just picked the guy with the most legroom. We drive about 45 minutes from the nearest beach, so I really thought it wouldn't be too bad, except that I I was told on the drive that we were actually going to a beach an hour and a half away instead. Well, my mood just became more and more sour. I never once relaxed, and eventually I find myself quietly fuming once my emotions set in. The boys that I'm squeezed into the back with just talk around me, physically leaning over me constantly and brushing up against me. Once we get to the beach, we set up and I finally find a moment to relax. I eat a sandwich I packed and I read a book, while Sarah and James are lovey-dovey and the guys mess around in the ocean. I was asked twice about why I only packed a sandwich for myself, and this was not said in a joking manner either. I mean, not once had I been asked to bring a single thing. When it came time to part where everyone was getting in the car, I just told James and Sarah that I had called an Uber to pick me up because I didn't want to sit on anyone's lap for an hour and a half. Sarah tried to argue, but my ride showed up and I just left. I then got a call from Sarah a few hours later. She called me a bad friend for ditching everybody. When I told her how the whole day was making me feel like crap, she told me I was being selfish and that I had been acting like a jerk all day. Now, I did not deserve that, but I am also pretty paranoid that I did something wrong. So truly, am I the jerk for taking an Uber home? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk at all. Sarah sucks as a friend. I'm gonna say that outright because that is so unbelievably toxic. Like literally, she made you sit on a stranger's lap for an hour and a half? Are you kidding me right now? Like, I don't know about you, but that would make me incredibly uncomfortable, especially with everyone in the back just talking around me and brushing up against me. Like, I'm sorry, but that's really creepy and weird. And I can totally understand why you got in the car in the first place. Like, you're just trying to be a good friend and you're trying to make Sarah happy and be like, okay, it's not gonna be like that long, right? But for her to be like, oh yeah, we're going an hour and a half away, strap in. It's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? I'm sitting on a guy's lap that I don't even know. I don't want to be here. This is weird. Not to mention incredibly dangerous. Like, why would anybody advocate for you to sit on someone's lap like that and pressure you into that knowing that it's not safe? Like, what are we doing right now? And then for Sarah to come back and be like, you are so selfish. You're a bad friend. I can't believe you. You ditched all of us. And it's like, dude, no, I didn't ditch anybody. You literally put my life in danger to sit on someone's stupid lap saying, oh, you never know, you could get a date out of it. Like, seriously, Sarah's a moron. Like, are you kidding? So no, you're not the jerk. This is so weird of Sarah to ask of you. And the fact that she got offended over this and is somehow upset because you took a stand, like that, in my opinion, shows the real person that Sarah truly is. An entitled worker at a UPS store refuses to allow me to return my Amazon product while also claiming that it'll be $20 for a box, despite the fact that everybody told me it would be free. So I decide to maliciously comply by literally putting together a box with some box cutters and some painter's tape in such a way that would force this lady to repackage it and retape it in the way that she should have done in the first place. Here's what happened. Okay, so I ordered a faulty walking treadmill from Amazon that had a broken 3-prong plug. When I contacted Amazon, they told me I was past the return window and that I had to contact the manufacturer. Mind you, I was only 2 days past the return window, and I kindly asked to speak to a supervisor to see if a one-time exception could be made, as I am a Prime customer. And doesn't Amazon pride itself on customer service? So after Amazon refused to return the item, I contacted the manufacturer. Well, they also gave me the runaround and did not want to replace it either. So I contacted Amazon again, and I explained the situation to them, and now magically, I'm offered a one-time exception, and they appreciate my business so much, and they are so thankful for me being a Prime customer. Now, Amazon told me to take it to any UPS store, and they would package and return it for me for free. This was also confirmed via telephone with UPS. Now, for those wondering, I opened this package in February soon after I opened it, and I just moved it and threw away all the boxes and everything after cleanup. I get to the UPS store, and I lug this 50-pound contraption to the front desk, and I hand them a return label. The lady immediately looks at me and tells me I need a box, but I politely explained to her that I was informed by both Amazon and UPS that the return packaging is free. The woman then tells me at least 5 times that no, it is not, and that I need a box. For reference, I'm a college student who has 31 cents to my name. She then tells me that the box is $20, but I just spent my last $30 on medication, so I do not have $20. And I was told by multiple people that this was free of charge. She then rudely and loudly tells me that I need a box and that this is the policy, completely embarrassing me in front of multiple customers. And it's like, okay, fine. You want a box? You're gonna get a box. A UPS driver then tells me he will borrow some tape from the store and a box cutter and will help me tape up some boxes to return it. Now at this point, he goes back into the store and asks for tape to help me, and the lady at the counter tells him no, which is honestly not that big of a surprise considering the lady at the front desk. So I go outside to the dumpster and proceed to tape up multiple boxes with the help of the kind UPS driver and get some painter's tape from a nearby Little Caesars and somehow get it into the box. And trust me when I say this, even though I got it in a box, or what you would call a box, they absolutely will have to repackage it and retape it because what I gave them was absolutely hilarious. Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where they absolutely are at fault, and that lady behind the front desk should be fired. Seriously, this is unacceptable, and I just can't believe that she's trying to be like, oh yeah, it's gonna be $20 for a box. It's like, no, it's not. Everybody said it's free. Sorry, but I'm not gonna pay you $20 for something that's free. I quite literally cannot stand people who don't want to do their job and then somehow shift the burden of doing their job onto the customer. That is honestly so obnoxious, and I cannot stand that. Like, seriously, get a life and get another job if you hate it that much. But don't put that responsibility on my shoulders just because you're too lazy. And the Karen behind the desk in this story absolutely was just that. She was lazy and she didn't want to do what she needed to do. So yeah, I love this malicious compliance because now, whether she likes it or not, she's gonna have to repackage it and retape it whether she likes it or not. My entitled aunt is demanding that I move back home and take care of my grandmother full-time as her caregiver, stating that because I'm not working, this would be the perfect opportunity to prove that I care. But despite the fact that my grandmother was a monster growing up, I truly don't want to uproot my entire life just to take care of someone who has treated me so poorly. And at this point, I'm honestly so frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my grandparents played a huge role in raising my brother and myself, as well as my aunt's 2 kids. Between her kids, me, and my brother, my grandparents' house was a revolving door of children being dropped off while our parents worked full-time. As the oldest, I was expected to take on the most responsibility and became my grandmother's helper. My grandparents were awful verbally and emotionally, and they literally had no boundaries. I spent significant time in their home, constantly being ordered around and reminded how much I owed them. They lived in the house directly behind my dad's, so there was no escaping it. If they needed something, they called. If they wanted something done, I was expected to do it. At the age of 22, I was exhausted and I moved away. I've lived away from home for 8 years now, and recently I've been hearing about my grandparents' declining health. I was told my grandmother has dementia and my grandfather has limited time, but when I speak with them, they seem completely lucid. I've attempted to clarify their condition with my dad and my brother, but I've been met with vague, passive-aggressive answers. Anyways, I was recently laid off and called my aunt, as she has a strong professional network, and I was seeing if there's any other job openings that she might know about. Well, her reply was really harsh. She said to me, "I've got too much crap going on here to worry about you." But I didn't ask her to worry about me. I asked if she knew anyone was hiring. She then revealed the likely true reason she answered my call. My grandfather is in assisted living, and she, my brother, and my cousins are all juggling work and caregiving shifts for my grandmother, who apparently can't be left alone in the home anymore. And this was all news to me. She praised my brother and her daughter, comparing me negatively to them as always, then demanded I move home and become my grandmother's full-time caregiver because I'm currently unemployed. She then said that I had to give some to get some. When I politely declined, she blamed my refusal on my mother not raising me right, despite my grandparents essentially raising all of us. For reference, my mother left when I was 6 years old, and my grandparents undermined both she and my dad completely. They controlled everything about my upbringing, so I was essentially raised by the same people who raised my aunt, and now I feel like my aunt is trying the same manipulation with me. When I pointed out that I have no medical training and suggested they hire a nurse, she just dismissed it, claiming that due to short staffing, hiring a nurse wasn't an option. But I know exactly what will happen if I agree. I'll be trapped there indefinitely, sacrificing my life while everyone else continues normally, and this is just a black hole that I refuse to enter. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to drop everything in my life, move back home and become my grandmother's unpaid caregiver, all because my aunt's demanding it out of me? Because right now I'm honestly so upset and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I think you would be a fool to go back there and be a full-time caregiver, because for starters, that's not your full-time employment, so how would you even begin to know how to take care of someone like that? Not to mention the fact that you wouldn't be paid, but in reality, they're only trying to get you to do it because they don't want to, and they're too cheap to be like, okay, you need assisted living or something like that. Like your aunt even said it, she's like, well, you're not working, you could be her full-time caregiver, go ahead. And it's like, dude, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to take care of someone who verbally and emotionally mistreated me and who had literally no boundaries my entire upbringing? You know, the same people who would use me and say, oh yeah, you're our helper and you need to do stuff if we say so. Like, I don't know about you, but I would absolutely move out as well and not go back for almost a decade if they did that to me. So the fact that your aunt's trying to pull that same stunt on you and pull you right back into a situation that you definitely don't want, in my opinion, is super toxic. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled coworkers absolutely make my life a living nightmare after they not only discredit me as a server, but also try to gang up on me the second I try to correct any of them. So I decided to get some petty revenge by quitting without any kind of notice just to mess up the schedule. Here's what happened. Okay, the best restaurants and coworkers I ever had came from when management had us all working as a team. Unfortunately, some places think waiting tables is an individual sport and only care about their own money, not realizing that working together makes all of you money. One night I got triple sat with 3 tables in my section after helping out my coworkers with everything, from running food to refilling drinks. As I was triple sat, no one helped me at all. Eventually, a server in the section next to mine took one of my tables, and it was honestly no big deal. The problem came when I took a table in her section since she took one of mine. She came over screaming at me how I stole one of her tables loudly in front of other coworkers, and I assumed it was for the theatrics of putting me in my place. When I kindly pointed out that she took one of my tables, and now I have a limited section, this server and a manager who are all friends kept telling me how I couldn't manage my section, so I lost a table. And it's like, well, maybe because I was triple sat while no one lifted a finger to help me out, and then uses this as some kind of opportunity to portray me as an awful server. Well, at that point, I mentally checked out. I ran my food, pretended to be busy, and selfishly only cared about myself. Oh, you're busy now and need ice? Well, too bad, so sad. You need to refill drinks? Sure, I'll get right on that. When I got home, I saw this manager put up the new schedule, and you know what? I purposefully quit without notice to intentionally mess up the schedule. The moral of the story is to treat everyone with respect and help your teammates. In this particular story, they didn't appreciate that I was being a good coworker. But if you treat me like crap, I won't only quit, but I'll also intentionally go out of my way to ensure that I don't help you at all. Okay, in my opinion, this is a great lesson for everybody to try and take in, because seriously, sometimes you have to look out for yourself. These coworkers and managers were not only super toxic for being like, oh, you can't handle your section by yourself, so I'm gonna take one of your tables, but also have the audacity to be like, oh, I can't believe you took one of mine, how dare you? And I think the original poster has it right. This was literally all just theatrical, and they're doing that just to make a scene. And it's like, seriously, come on, this is so stupid. What are we getting upset about? You're the one that's trying to discredit me as a server after you screw me out of getting anything done by triple seating me. And it's like, come on, man, that is so difficult. You quite literally sat everybody all at once, meaning that one of those tables is going to be waiting longer than the other ones. And so now the next, 2 hours are going to be me scrambling all over the place just to get stuff done? That is so stupid, and it's something they did to the original poster. So truly, I don't blame you for getting revenge in this way, because these people truly suck. My entitled coworker stole my burger that I ordered from our restaurant and served it to a customer, saying that the customer comes first and that I can always get another one. And I'm honestly so blown away by this that I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I ordered a steak burger from my friend who works across the street from my restaurant. I trade him the discounted food that I get from work for drinks at the bar that he works at to save a few bucks. I see the burger come off the line in a to-go box, and I put it aside and go about my work as I still have tables. At one point, I see the downstairs chef come up looking frazzled. And for reference, this is a 2-story restaurant with a kitchen upstairs and downstairs. But I don't pay much attention to the chef, to be completely honest. Well, when I come back into the kitchen, I see that my burger is missing. I then ask my coworker about it, and he tells me that Jose, the chef, took it. At this point, I'm confused. I say to them, what do you mean he took it? He replies by saying, well, there was a problem downstairs and the kitchen had made a mistake and not made a burger that they needed. So he took yours and sold it to a customer because they had already closed the kitchen down there. I told him the burger was yours, and he just said that the customer comes first. Apparently, the other managers knew about the problem, and after he stole my burger, he assured them, don't worry, I found one. Well, guess what? He didn't find one. He stole mine without saying a word, without asking, without explaining, and maybe pleading with me to help him. He just saw a burger in a to-go box and sold it to the guest. I mean, the ticket was gone, so I doubt he even knew the temperature. He just panicked and stole mine and served it and crossed his fingers that the temperature matched the one the guest ordered, I suppose. And this is wildly unprofessional. I've been cussed out by chefs, disrespected, and all kinds of garbage, but never have I had my food just yanked away from me to serve to a guest with zero remorse. So at the end of the day, my buddy didn't get a burger, and I had to pay full price for my drinks, making this entire situation absolutely ridiculous. Wow, what that chef did was so unbelievably toxic. Seriously, this has got to be like some kind of health hazard, right? He literally served a burger that was sitting solo in a to-go box, and then didn't even have the decency to replace it after he literally took someone else's food. That's not only incredibly toxic, but so unsanitary. He doesn't know where that burger went. It could have been sitting there for who knows how long. It probably wasn't even heated up properly. What was this chef thinking? I know if I was in your shoes, I would report him immediately, because this is really not okay. And you know what? The customer does not come first in this situation. If this guy really was thinking about the customer, he would have made something fresh instead of stealing from his coworkers. So yeah, I'm right there with the original poster. after because this is an incredibly awful situation. Am I the jerk for not showing up to my friend's birthday surprise for me, resulting in her literally acting like I don't exist? Because right now I'm incredibly hurt and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I turned 21 last December, and one of my friends, let's call her Amelia, wanted to celebrate. She didn't bring me a gift, which is fine. I wasn't expecting anything extravagant, but she did bring donuts. But unfortunately, the issue is how everything went down. That morning, she texted me, "Happy birthday, girl. You better not be late because I brought something for you." I told her, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, I might be running late." But after I said that, she started sending voicemails telling me to hurry up. And then a few minutes later, she sent a video of herself eating the donuts and said to me, "This is what you get for being late." I arrived at school 10 minutes late and went straight to the library. I was stressed about a huge exam and I needed time alone. My mental health was at an all-time low and I didn't feel like interacting with anyone. I figured that she would understand that, but I guess not. For context, my birthday is December 22nd, but she only brought me something on December 30th. I wasn't mad about it, but it is kind of ironic. The next day, she started avoiding me and giving me an attitude whenever she was forced to talk to me. And then things got really weird. One morning, she and my other friend, who we will call Jasmine, were together ordering coffee. I was reading nearby, not really paying attention, and Amelia turned to me and said, "Hey, unknown, do you want something?" And I didn't realize she was talking to me at first, but when Jasmine tapped me and said, "Hey, do you want anything?" it finally hit me. She was deliberately refusing to say my name. Since then, she's been calling me unknown, making it clear that I'm dead to her. And the funniest part is that she's 22 and she's older than me. Like, girl, this isn't junior high. Acting this petty over donuts is ridiculous. At this point, I was genuinely confused. Did I really commit some unspeakable crime by prioritizing my exam over a surprise donut party that I never asked for? Eventually, I apologized and I explained that I'd been super stressed out and my mental health was a mess. I apologized to everyone in on the celebration and not just her. But even after that, she kept acting petty. Then one of Amelia's friends pulled me aside and said, "By the way, Amelia is still really mad at you. She had to fight to get those donuts for you because her grandpa drives her to university every day and he yelled at her for stopping to pick them up." And that's when I realized that this wasn't even about me. She was taking out her family frustrations on me over donuts. When her friend told me that, I felt bad. I knew Amelia had a complicated home life, but I didn't realize she literally got yelled at for picking up donuts for me. I felt guilty, but at the same time, she could have communicated that herself. I didn't ask her to do this, and I definitely don't think it justifies ignoring me, giving me an attitude, and calling me unknown like I'm some NPC in her life. So honestly, am I the jerk for not showing up to my own little birthday celebration? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I don't think Amelia's actually your friend. It sounds like this is someone who's masquerading as your friend, and the second you didn't give in to everything she was asking for, she suddenly dropped the act and showed her true colors. Like, this lady sounds like an awful person. Like, for starters, I don't know about you, but if I'm having a birthday celebration of some kind, I'm gonna make sure that I get it to them on the day of their birthday and not 8 days later and be like, "I've got you a birthday present." It's like, dude, my birthday was 8 days ago, but thanks, I guess. And also, December 22nd kind of sounds like the time when like finals are going on, or there might be some kind of like final exam that's happening. And it's like, dude, how do you not know that people are stressed out? If I had a friend come up to me and be like, "Listen, my mental health is really bad. I'm stressed out because of a huge exam. I really just need time alone." Then I would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do for you? I love and care about you, etc." But Amelia stands there and says, "I can't believe that you inconvenienced me like this." And those supposed friends coming over and being like, "By the way, Amelia's still mad at you." They are just as bad, and they're literally just flying monkeys for Amelia. Like, seriously, you don't need any of these people. They all suck so much. And you can find better friends than this literally anywhere. Like, these people are seriously getting upset over a donut party that you never asked for. And this crazy idiot sits there and says, "Oh, this is what you get for being late," and eats all the donuts herself. Like, what? Could she not have just gotten it to you later and said, "Oh, sorry you couldn't make it. Here you go"? Like, what a weirdo. This is so strange to me. This is drama just for the sake of having drama instead of actually having something go wrong and to be like, okay, no, this is a problem. So no, you're not the jerk, but honestly, I think you could do so much better than these people. You don't need these kind of supposed friends in your life because it sounds like they're dragging you down, and honestly, you do not deserve that in the slightest. My new manager pisses the entire team off after she makes our lives a living nightmare. Here's what happened. So I used to be part of a tech support team. We worked from a call center to provide support during working hours for the software that our company sold. We were a pretty autonomous team. We worked pretty flexibly and always looked after each other if anyone had to stay late to sort issues out. And we always got our time back or paid for it. And it was usual that some of the team would come in late if caught on calls. In general, everyone communicated and the team functioned well, and the flexible attitude definitely helped clients. Well, that is until our new manager came in. She was a strict 9 to 5, nothing happens without my say kind of person, and it really didn't take long to piss people off. Oh, you worked an hour over helping a client? I don't care, you still need to be at your desk at 9 o'clock. You worked over your hours? Well, manage your time better, you're salaried after all. It didn't take long for it to start, and there wasn't any discussion between team members, but the response was clear. If you are not flexible, then neither are we. 5 p.m. rolled around and people would politely disconnect calls even if not resolved. Call resolution metrics tanked, and eventually her boss showed up to get the root cause of the issues. Eventually, during a team meeting, the grievances came out, and it was suggested that we go back to being flexible with our time. Now, thankfully, to her credit, she did listen and did mend some of the relationships that she harmed with her harsh start to the business. And eventually, she genuinely seemed like a good boss once she gave the team some trust and some space. Wow, this is the first time I've ever seen a manager actually see the error of their ways, especially one that's micromanaging everything around them. Because here's the thing, especially at like a call center or something like that, where you're interacting with customers on a daily basis, sometimes those phone calls can go over and it's just the way that it is. You can't always escape it, and sometimes it's inevitable. So the fact that this lady came in here and said, no, you need to be out of here by 5 o'clock, and was completely unmovable in this regard, like that in my opinion is so sketchy. That is really annoying, and honestly, I would hate that if I was in your shoes. But I seriously think it's a massive plot twist that she actually listened to everybody and saw the error of her ways. Because usually it's one of those things where it's like, oh no, they're gonna go down kicking and screaming. But thankfully, it sounds like you had a really good boss, because this kind of result definitely does not happen every day. Today, I found out that my best friend is dating my ex-fiance, and after storming out of her house after finding out about this information, my best friend is saying that I'm the jerk and that I overreacted. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. For some background information, my ex, who we will call Matt for the sake of the story, dated me for nearly 3 years. We lived together and he proposed to me 3 months before we separated. We were very serious, but our relationship had always been turbulent to say the least. We argued quite a lot, but we almost always made up within hours. The arguments could be extremely petty, sometimes over simple things like leaving the lights on or shoes being left out of place. Eventually, these constant arguments took their toll, and I just couldn't deal with waking up every morning feeling anxious about the shouting matches to come. So I ended the relationship. I was heartbroken, but I knew that for my own sanity, I was doing the right thing. When Matt and I would argue, I often reached out to my best friend. We'll call her Hannah for the sake of the story, and she would often assure me that he was being a jerk. Now, we had been friends for a very long time, maybe around 18 years. She's more like the sister I never had, and we tell each other almost everything. I didn't like it when she spoke negative about him, so I used to defend him, even when I was mad at him and was the one initially complaining. She often went too far, outright insulting him, calling him a man baby, among other things, and she openly admitted that she thought I could do better and that he was a waste of space, as he was often between jobs and I sometimes had to cover his share of the rent and bills. So, as you can probably gather, Hannah was not Matt's biggest fan, not by a long shot. So imagine my surprise when, while casually offering to make me a cup of tea, she drops the bombshell that she and Matt are dating. I have never felt so betrayed in my entire life. I immediately started freaking out. I was crying, laughing at the absurdity of all of it. She was saying words, but I wasn't hearing them. I just had to get out of there, so I did. After a few hours, I had calmed down somewhat, and she had been calling my phone nonstop, but I had it on silent. I unmuted it and she called again, and I decided to answer. Well, she was not apologetic, not even in the slightest. Instead, she told me I was completely overreacting and that I shouldn't even be upset because I was the one who ended the relationship and the breakup was nearly a year ago. She said all I ever did was complain about him to her when we were together, so she didn't think I'd be bothered. In my mind, she is completely in the wrong here, but she's also not wrong that I was the one who broke up with him. She also isn't wrong that whenever I spoke about him, I didn't have nice things to say about him. So seriously, am I overreacting here? My feelings are valid, but maybe hers are too. I'm trying to see things from her perspective, but I'm just so hurt right now that I really don't know what to do. Wow, this is an awful friend. And trust me when I say this, she is not your friend. This Hannah lady clearly was like, oh yeah, finally you broke up with Matt. Time for me to step in and start dating him. She knew all of your insecurities about that man and everything you've ever complained about. She stood there and watched as your relationship fell apart, and she still felt like it was a good idea to say, oh, maybe I should date him. And that, in my opinion, is the mark of an awful friend. Like, why would you date a friend's ex-boyfriend? Seriously, that's a one-way ticket to losing a friend, especially when the breakup involved like you knowing everything about him. So truly, I don't think you're overreacting, and I think you have every right to be pissed off at Hannah, because what she's doing right now is super toxic, and in my opinion, there is absolutely no good excuse. Am I the jerk for accepting a friend's birthday celebration invite without first seeking approval from my roommate? Because right now, my roommate's very pissed off, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 29-year-old female, and I recently got a text from my friend Courtney inviting inviting me to a small girl's birthday gathering at a winery. I immediately said I'd love to go, and I asked if she had invited Emily, who's my best friend and roommate as well. Courtney responded and said yes, but didn't expect Emily to come since it is at 11 o'clock in the morning. For reference, Emily is a night owl, and she typically sleeps until late in the afternoon. I told Courtney I was excited and I would mention it to Emily to try and get her to come along. Well, later on, when I asked Emily if she was excited for it, she got defensive. She said to me, "I find it weird that you would accept the invite from my sister-in-law before knowing if I would even go." She also implied that me potentially going without her would make her look bad, and that me hanging out with her family is a boundary for her. For some context, I met Emily over a decade ago through her brother, and we've all been a part of the same friend group ever since, though obviously I'm closer to Emily since we're roomies. I was invited to Courtney's wedding, baby showers, birthdays, and we've done group trips together. I've always considered Courtney my friend, not just Emily's sister-in-law. While most of our hangouts have been in group settings, I don't think that means I can't have a friendship with Courtney on my own. Emily also hit me with this hypothetical: "What if I hung out with your sister-in-law without you?" To which I responded, "Well, have you considered her a friend for 10 plus years?" She also admitted that she regrets not having a stronger relationship with Courtney, but I don't think that should affect my ability to go to her event. As a side note, Emily is notorious for not responding to messages about plans, so I can see why Courtney reached out to me directly. And it's not like Courtney invited me instead of Emily. She invited both of us, and I accepted like any adult would. I want to be respectful of Emily's feelings and boundaries, but I also feel like this is more about her own insecurities than me crossing some kind of boundary. But I also see how it could be different because we live together. So am I the jerk for accepting the invite without checking with Emily first? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. You are not the jerk here. Emily's being so weird. The only reason she doesn't want you to go is because this is going to make her look like an idiot. And trust me, in my opinion, I think Emily is the idiot here. She's trying to police who you can and can't spend time with, and it's like, wait a second, you guys are fully grown adults. Emily cannot boss you around, and there's no reason why you should have to listen to her. She can't gatekeep and exert control over this friendship while also trying to be like, this is my boundary and you can't cross it. It's like, dude, that's not a boundary. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't hold up in my opinion. You literally are doing nothing to Emily. You're spending time with people that just so happen to be related to Emily. And it's not like these are toxic people. Emily's the toxic one in my opinion. She hasn't made any effort to get to know Courtney better, and then she has the audacity to sit there and try and police who you can and can't see. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not gonna happen. I don't think so. So no, you're not the jerk. I think Emily's being really dumb, and in my opinion, I say you absolutely go to that birthday celebration, because no one, especially a roommate, has any say over what you can or cannot do. My entitled coworker decided to take credit for my hard work on a project I have really been struggling with. So I decided to get some revenge by not only proving that I'm the one that did this work, but also exposing my coworker for the fraud that they are. Here's what happened. So I work as a software engineer, and in my team, we follow the usual process of writing code, reviewing it, testing it, and deploying it. One of my coworkers, who we will call Steve, had a habit for taking credit for other people's work in front of management. He isn't a bad developer, but he loves making it seem like he was doing more than he actually was. I am quite introverted, so I don't usually speak up in meetings unless I have to, and calling someone out directly doesn't come naturally to me, so I usually just let things slide. During a big project, I spent days fixing a complicated bug. The problem ran deep, and the fix had to work across different parts of the code. If you hadn't actually worked on it, it was pretty hard to follow. After a lot of testing, I finally got it done. At the next team meeting, before I could even say a word, Steve jumped in and started explaining my fix as if it was his. He kept saying things like, "We decided to," or even saying like, "Oh, our approach to this was this and that," making it sound like he was the person behind it. Well, I was really annoyed, but I kept quiet. The next day, another bug popped in the same area of the code, and our manager turned to Steve and said, "Well, since you worked on this, can you patch it?" And that's when the fun started. Steve froze. The thing is, if you didn't actually write the fix, it wasn't easy to understand how it all fit together. He had no idea where to even begin. He tried stalling, and even sent me a message explaining if I could explain the logic of the code real quick. But here's where I started to enact my revenge. I told him that I was busy at the moment and that I will catch up with him later on. But you know what? I didn't. After 5 hours of struggling, he finally admitted in the team chat and wrote something like, "Actually, I didn't write this part, but maybe if you check with the original poster, they could take a look." And I replied by saying, "Oh, of course, I'll check it out." Well, 10 minutes later, I had it all fixed up. Our manager then came over and congratulated me. We were chatting for a bit, and before heading off, he made a deliberate comment about how great it was having someone who actually understands what we are working on. And when I was told that, Steve didn't say a word. So honestly, it felt great to throw Steve under the bus, especially after he tried to take credit for my work. I love this story for so many reasons because I have run into so many Steves in my life. People who literally walk up there and say, "Oh yeah, I did the work for this. This is my credit. I'm the one that did it. And then you're sitting there like, okay, are you kidding me right now? This is not something you even touch for a second. Are you seriously trying to take credit for my work? And I totally understand where the original poster is coming from. They don't want to cause any drama and they don't want to stir the pot, so they're like, okay, I'm just going to sit back and see where this goes. Because generally speaking, especially in like a professional working environment, that's how I feel most of the time. Like I don't want to cause any problems and I don't want to stir the pot because, you know, I need to make rent. But thankfully, the universe had different plans for Steve because this guy got thrown under the bus in a beautiful fashion. And in my opinion, this is just karma sorting out the jerks from the people who are truly honest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I overreacting for reporting a coworker after they literally assaulted me at work? Because right now, my boss and all of my coworkers are saying that I should have kept my mouth shut. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, today I walked into my office to ask my coworkers if they wanted something to eat. And I asked this because I was grabbing lunch for myself and I just wanted to check. Well, a coworker immediately got upset that I was in there and I just took it as playful banter. But then out of nowhere, he got up angry, cussed me out, and shoved me hard in the chest and slammed the door in my face. Now, another coworker gaslit me into blaming me for the assault. So I went right to HR to report the incident since he did hurt my chest. My department boss called me and proceeded to gaslight me just as my coworker did by saying that we are a close-knit group. For reference, I just started a few months ago while they've been working there for years. My boss then said, well, couldn't this have just been talked out? Why would you go straight to human resources? But the fact is, I've always had problems with this guy before, and this was the final straw. He then ended the call by saying, well, this isn't good. So seriously, I really need to know, did I overreact in this situation? Everyone around me seems to put the blame on me, but doesn't it cross a line when a physical altercation happens? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna say this first and foremost. The second anybody attacks you at work is the second that you need to report that immediately. This guy literally got angry because you walked in and said, hey, I'm getting something to eat. You guys want anything? And then he attacked you and slammed the door in your face. I don't care about him getting angry or cussing you out or even him slamming the door. It's the fact that he took his hands and he shoved you in the chest. Like that to me is completely unacceptable. That is where this absolutely needs to be escalated. If this was a friend or someone that I knew forever and I knew this was some kind of playful banter, then yeah, I would be like, okay, this is fine. We're just kidding around. It's no big deal. But you don't know this guy like that. You've literally been working there for like what, a few months? There is no conceivable reason why he should ever attack you like that. Like that, in my opinion, is crazy and I just cannot accept that for a second. And this whole BS of like, why would you go to HR first? What are you doing? Like the fact that your department boss said that to you is like unbelievably crazy. Like they really should be fired for saying that. Like I don't care if that's your friend or not. You can't attack another coworker just because they walked in a room and you didn't want them there. And in my opinion, anytime someone says, oh, we're a close-knit group, that's really just coding for like, oh, we're like a family here. And anytime anyone says that, they literally only say that so they can like get away with crap like this. And I bet you this is one of those coworkers who people have put up with for years, and you just so happen to be the only person who stepped up and said, no, I'm not going to be attacked like this. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and in my opinion, I would record everything and document everything regarding this, because at the end of the day, what happened to you was not okay, and you did not deserve that in the slightest. Today, I messed up along with the rest of my French class after we decided to write letters to a French prisoner as some kind of exercise for our French class in high school, resulting in one of the creepiest situations we've ever been in our entire lives. Here's what happened. Okay, this happened a long time ago when I was 16 years old. Our school participated in the International Baccalaureate program that allowed us to take some intense classes and finish up high school with a lot of college credits. Even if you didn't complete the entire program, the courses were great college prep. I decided my junior year of high school that I would take a French class which was completely immersive, and our teacher required us to answer everything in French. Did you want to go to the restroom or have a question about your homework? Well, you had to answer in French. She assigned the entire first chapter the first day of class due the next day. Every exercise from beginning to end, and this was like literally 20 pages. The class originally had 20 people signed up. However, the assignment left the class with only 5 of us left. With students willing to put in the work, our teacher worked hard to give us an all-around education in French. We read French novels, watched French TV, discussed French history and politics, and keep in mind, this is in the late 90s, so the internet was not readily available. I also lived in Central Appalachia, so just having this program was an amazing opportunity, but our resources were very limited. She went above and beyond to give us work that was both hard and interesting. I remember reading Asterix and Obelix comic books in French, and I once had a scavenger hunt around my school in total French directions. Needless to say, my teacher was always trying a variety of ways to keep up working on our French skills. One day, she had us reading a French magazine for translation, and in the middle of class, she tells us she has a great idea. While we were working, she was looking into the classified section of the paper, just curious to see what is sold, who is interested in what topic, and etc. And right there, amongst all the wanted ads, was an advertisement about a Frenchman in a maximum security prison in Colorado, looking for someone to write to him in French. For the sake of the story, we'll call him Max, and it gave us an address to write to. So my teacher thought, well, wouldn't that be a great way to sharpen our French skills and writing skills? But here's where the 5 of us screwed up first. We all immediately got out our papers and began writing to this Max, no questions asked. Now, it wasn't completely stupidly on our part, and we didn't give our full names or address, but mailed from our school, which admittedly isn't much of a cover for any of us, since we are a very rural area, and it would be easy to find us. But we write our letters, which I know dates my age. If you ever wrote letters to a complete stranger, the first letter is usually introducing yourself to the receiver, telling about yourself, your life, your family, which of course we did. But do you know what we didn't do? We didn't think that a guy in prison with the ability to place an ad could be that serious of a criminal, and at first he wasn't. The first letter he wrote back was that our teacher was an angel, and our letters were a bright spot in an otherwise dark existence. He wrote about how lonely it had been without an opportunity to interact with his native language, and he eagerly looked forward to our correspondence. So our pen pal situation continued until Max decided that we needed to hear his tragic tale of woe. Keep in mind, we're high school students, so our translation skills were not professional. But what I remember from the letter went something like this. Max was just a simple man. He arrived in America to gain the American dream. He began by running a business and exporting leather goods, but found that he needed connections to get his inventory into the country. And this is where his partner enters the scene, who assured him that he can get his cargo into America without too much delay with customs. And of course, he had no idea that his partner was running illegal substances. I mean, of course, how could he? It wasn't until his business got raided that he discovered all the money he had been getting from the partner just happened to be laundered in his export business. At least that's what the FBI explained when he got arrested. So now our French class was in a dilemma. We had been writing this guy, and honestly, we hadn't given any thought as to why he was in Colorado. Even still, we certainly thought we wouldn't stumble into a mob money launderer who thought that we were angels and told us that he would eventually get out in a few years. None of us really wanted to continue this. Luckily, school was finishing, and we all agreed that it would be best if we all conveniently forgot about all of this. We also never told anybody, not out of some solidarity, but it didn't cross our minds that this was something our parents needed to know. Besides, our teacher knew. I mean, who else needed to? So our senior year starts, and our French teacher comes in and asks which one of us told Max about her birthday. Well, there were blank stares all around because we didn't know her birthday. She tells us she got a birthday card from Max at her home address, which we also didn't know about either, because while our tiny town didn't have extensive internet, apparently his prison did, or at least that was the only logical conclusion we could come up with. So we had complete no contact with Max for the rest of the year, because we all dreaded the idea that he had the ability to find where we lived. I now teach at this same school with the French teacher, and we both marvel at the fact that she gave us the assignment of writing an unknown prisoner with no concern to our safety, and that we as students willingly participated with these letters without telling anybody. So it was on that day that I learned, just because the teacher says to do something, you might want to still think about the unintended consequences of that assignment, because trust me, it could be way worse than you're expecting. Oh my gosh, that is really scary. For starters, I really think you guys had the right intentions here, because this really did seem like a good opportunity to like practice French, but also maybe reach out to someone who's like down on their luck. But my God, the fact that this guy figured out your teacher's address and birthday, like, are you kidding me right now? That is super creepy. So yeah, this is a massive mess up, because this truly could have been way worse. Am I the jerk for not wanting to travel with my friend to Italy after she has literally been indecisive for 6 weeks about whether she's going or not? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm visiting my sister studying abroad in Italy in a couple of weeks. It's also been 6 weeks since I've booked my flights and decided the trip dates. When I first booked the trip, I asked some friends if they wanted to come with me, and most of my friends politely declined. But one of my friends, who we will call Michaela, said that she might be in for the trip but had to figure some money stuff out before deciding. And I was fine with that, as we had time. I knew Michaela for a year before this, and I wasn't sure how serious she was, but I was down to discuss traveling. Michaela and I talked about the trip here and there, and I asked multiple times about the status of her bookings. She kept saying that she is definitely coming, and even talked about specific things that we could do in Italy. However, she kept putting off actually booking anything. A month ago, she told me that she needed a few days, and she would know 100% if she was coming. A week later, she told me she could not come due to issues with getting paid at work, and then 2 weeks ago, she said she's back in again. And I was happy happy to have her back in, but still, as of today, she hasn't booked any flights or stay. The trip is now a little more than 2 weeks away. She has no flights and we still haven't booked our Airbnb stay for 5 of the nights. I messaged her yesterday morning asking her status about being ready to book things. I said I was feeling nervous that it was so last minute and this is not how I usually do things when traveling. She responded that she's serious about coming and just needs until Friday to decide if she's coming, and if so, we could book everything by Monday. By the way, the Monday she's referring to is the Monday the week before the trip. I then hesitated and I said, okay, but you have until Friday. Well, later last night, I thought about it all and I made a decision. I told Michaela that it might just be better if I go alone. I said that I'm going there to see my sister and she could accommodate me, and that it would be better for my wallet than booking Airbnbs with her. I mean, times are tough. Now, I expected that she would be fine with me saying this since she hadn't booked anything yet and hadn't even decided whether she wanted to go. But Michaela was very upset. She was mad by me saying that I was going to go solo and said it was weird for me to bring this up now. She said that it was messed up that I told her earlier in the day that it was okay for her to decide until Friday and then change my mind. But my position is that I waited 6 weeks for her to book the trip. How can she be mad at me for not waiting 3 days until Friday? She's acting like the victim somehow. She said it seems like I don't want her to go, but to me it feels like she's not serious about going because she hasn't booked a single thing to commit to this trip in 6 weeks. So after this conversation, which definitely did not go great, she called me a bad friend. She then unfollowed me on Instagram and removed photos that were posted of us. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I think this should have been cut off a long time ago. Michaela is being super selfish. She's been leaving you on the hook for what, 6 weeks now? Like, she needs to figure out if she's going or not and then just commit to whatever that is. If she's going, fantastic, come along. But if you're not going, then just tell me so I can move on and get this going. And she seriously wants to be like, oh yeah, it's fine, we can book the Airbnb a week before. Like, what are you talking about? No, we're not doing that. That is so irresponsible and so like last minute. And I'm sorry, but if I'm traveling internationally, I'm gonna figure out all these details way in advance. I'm not gonna let anybody make me wait until the week before just to figure out where I'm gonna stay and how I'm gonna get around. So no, this friend had so much time to figure this out, it's not even funny. And it's ironic that she would be like, wow, you changed your mind last second. How dare you say I have 3 days? But it's like, dude, no, you've had 6 weeks and you still can't figure it out. And that, in my opinion, is not your problem, and you have every right to move forward without Michaela being involved. Today, I got a car dealership shut down after they tried to sue me for a car that I wrecked because of their negligence. And I'm honestly still blown away by the way they treated me, and I'm glad that they ended up losing their license. Here's what happened. A number of years ago, I was test driving a used sports car. I got about 1 block from the dealership and got into an accident, and it was partially my fault. The brakes were spongy, and the stop ended up with the front end of the car sticking into the intersection about 2 feet. It was a residential area, and the only car on the cross street took off the front end of the car I was driving. So I make a police report and I report it to insurance, and my insurance company says not to worry about it. But a couple of months later, I get a letter from the dealership saying I owe the price of the car and that if I don't pay it, they're gonna sue me. But here's the thing, I had already talked to the insurance company. But once I informed the dealership I had already talked to the insurance company and knew the payout was more than the sales price of the car, I never heard from them ever again. I then contacted the government office that licensed car dealerships, and I told them exactly what happened. And thankfully, in a twist of fate, they ended up losing their license. Holy crap, I can't imagine test driving a car that literally has spongy brakes. Dude, are you kidding me right now? If you literally have a car that's up for sale, wouldn't you make sure the one thing that needs to be working is there working in the car? Like, the original poster could be dead right now. This could have been so bad. And then for these people to come back and be like, you're gonna pay for the car or else we're gonna sue you. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? The car you were trying to sell me is literally a piece of crap. And somehow this is my fault all because you guys can't put proper brakes on it? Like, I'm sorry, but that's not okay. That is so sketchy, it's not even funny. So good for you for reporting them and for getting them to lose their license, because the way they treated you is absolutely uncalled for. An entitled old lady in a shelter acted like she was in a hotel room, treating me like garbage and also making noise at all hours of the night. And I am seriously so glad I don't live there anymore, because that time in my life was a living nightmare. Here's what happened. To start things out, this was years ago, but I was in a transitional shelter. And for reference, this is sort of like a stepping stone between homelessness and getting an apartment. Anyways, everybody had their own room, but you had to share a bathroom. And the 2 rooms were connected by a bathroom. I was there for 3 weeks, and then they moved someone in next door to me. And that's fine, honestly, I didn't even think anything about it. But it turns out that my neighbor is the most entitled old lady I have ever met in my life. I mean, I could not even sleep at night due to her going into the bathroom and doing God knows what. She would stand in there talking to herself and slamming things down and just generally being a pain in the neck. When I told her to quiet down, she would just tell me to shut up and then cuss at me. And did I mention that this was happening in the middle of the night? I went to my case manager 3 separate times about this woman disturbing me and was told that she was not going to do anything about it. I was told you can either learn to live with it or you can move out. Your choice. I thought a case manager's job was to deal with stuff like that, but I soon found out that I was not the only person who was having issues with her. You also had to sign up for a specific time to do laundry. You could also pick up whatever time you wanted that was available, but you had to sign up. Well, she would frequently do laundry during other people's time slots, and when they said something to her, it was like, oh, I didn't know any better. But she had been there for 2 weeks at that time that the first incident I heard about occurred. So it's not that she didn't know, it's just that she didn't care. I even witnessed her treating the staff like they were supposed to say how high whenever she said jump. I mean, I just don't know how she didn't get thrown out of there. One time when I walked into the bathroom, I overheard her on the phone with someone complaining. She was saying stuff like, I should not have to share the bathroom with someone else. This is pathetic. She would frequently try to intimidate me, and I let her know that it was not going to happen. And she was mad that I wasn't just going to back down and let her treat me however she wanted. She seemed to be one of those old people who thinks that because they're old, they should get whatever they want and that the world revolves around them. She acted like she was paying for a hotel and that I was rude for being in her space. Her attitude was basically to say, how dare you be in my space? And I think the most messed up part about it is that she moved in on me and then had the nerve to act like I was inconveniencing her. I overheard her saying that she had been paying for a hotel before she got into the shelter. When I overheard her complaining about having to share a bathroom, I won't lie. I yelled out, then why don't you go pay for that hotel you said you were paying for? This is not a hotel. You can't just move in here and act like you own the place. She then told me again to shut up and cursed at me again. The rule stated that if you threatened another client or if you verbally mistreated them, then it was an immediate eviction, and there were no exceptions. So you know what? I recorded this entire thing and how she was constantly making noise. But even still, I was told to just deal with it. I ended up moving out because I couldn't take the constant noise and I couldn't take being kept up all night. I also considered going to the CEO of the place, but I just left it alone. All I know is that I feel sorry for whoever moved in after me because they were definitely going to need the patience of a saint. Anyways, that's my story. I just can't believe she had the nerve to move into a shelter and act like that. I was like, we are in a shared space. We're in close quarters and it's not ideal, but you should make the best of it. You can't just move in and then complain because it's not the way you want things to be. If you don't like it, then there's the door. But no, she just wanted everybody to bend over backwards for her. It really blows my mind how entitled some people can be, and it's like, seriously, read the room. Realize the situation that you're in and the reality of it. Don't complain about how you think things should be, and instead deal with how they are right now, which is exactly what I chose to do. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine living through that. Here you are in a literal situation where you're like, okay, I'm trying to figure my life out, and you're trying to find some kind of stability, and then in walks this idiot who clearly doesn't need to be there, who was literally at a hotel not even a few nights before, slamming the doors and making all this noise in the bathroom, while also trying to be like, no, you can't use the bathroom anymore. It's like, my God, how out of touch can you possibly get? So yeah, this whole situation is messed up, and I'm so sorry that you went through that, because the way this lady treated you is absolutely unacceptable. Today, I messed up by sending my boss a spicy text message that was meant for my boyfriend. And now I'm worried that I might be losing my job, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this literally just happened, and I'm still debating whether to quit my job and move to another country, maybe even change my name too. For a bit of backstory, my boyfriend and I have been dating for about a year, and we have this ongoing habit of sending flirty and sometimes slightly suggestive text messages throughout the day. Nothing too wild, just cute little messages to keep things fun. Well, that is until today. I was at work absolutely drowning in emails, and my boss had just messaged me about a project deadline. My stress levels were really high, but in the middle of all that chaos, my boyfriend texted me something really sweet. He said to me, I'm thinking about you and I can't wait to see you tonight. So in my stressed out multitasking mess of a brain, I quickly typed out a reply. I was just thinking about you too. Can't wait to get my hands on you later. Now this is innocent enough, right? Well, the problem is that instead of sending it to my boyfriend, I sent it to my boss, my 45-year-old, very serious, no-nonsense boss. Now let me tell you something. There's a very specific kind of panic that hits when you realize you've just sent something wildly inappropriate to the worst person possible. It's a mix of sheer terror, immediate regret, and the overwhelming desire to disappear into thin air. As soon as I saw the name at the top of the message, my soul left my body. I stared at my phone, praying that by some miracle, the message hadn't actually gone through. Maybe my phone glitched, or maybe I imagined it. But no, it delivered. I then immediately put my phone on airplane mode, hoping it would somehow delete itself from existence. And spoiler alert, alert, that's not how technology works. It's at this point I had two choices. My first one was to pretend like nothing happened and go on with my life as if I didn't just ruin my career. My second option is quit my job, move to a remote island, and start a new life as a coconut farmer. While I was contemplating my options, my boss, who never replies instantly, decided this was the moment to be lightning fast. My boss said to me, "Wrong person?" And at this point, I think my soul actually left my body for real. There was no saving this. There was no taking it back. I had two choices. I could own up to it and apologize, or just fake my own death. I went with option number one, even though the second one was very tempting, and I immediately sent back, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. That was meant for someone else. Please ignore it." My boss then left me on red for 10 minutes. And let me tell you something, 10 minutes in this situation feels like 10 years. I was convinced my career was over, that HR was typing up my termination letter, that security was on their way to escort me out of the building. He then finally replied, "Understood. Let's keep personal messages out of work communication." And that's it. No laughing it off, no awkward joke to ease the tension, just a cold professional warning. If I wasn't dying of embarrassment before, I was fully deceased now. The rest of the day was absolute torture. I avoided making eye contact with him, I kept my head down, and even considered throwing my phone into a river. Every time he walked to my desk, I felt my entire body heat up with secondhand embarrassment. And the worst part about it, I have a meeting with him tomorrow one-on-one. I do not know how I'm gonna sit across from him and discuss workflow strategies like I didn't just tell him I wanted to get my hands on him. I might have to call in sick or even quit or simply disappear, because right now I don't know what to do. Oh boy, this really is a massive mess up. I can only imagine what that must feel like. First of all, it was clearly an accident. You clearly sent the wrong thing to the wrong person, and if this guy doesn't understand that, then he really is a complete jerk. But also, I think it's important to know that, you know what, these things do happen. Like, you are not the first person in the universe for this to happen to. So if anything, I would definitely hold on to that and be like, okay, this is fine, I messed up, but like, it's not the end of the world. But hopefully all this works out for you, because I can only imagine what that one-on-one conversation is gonna be like. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for allegedly stooping to a new low by kicking my neighbor's garbage bins out of the way whenever she leaves it in front of my driveway? Because right now I kind of feel a little bit guilty, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my new neighbor moved in and she was nice enough at first, but she has a serious problem with how she handles garbage days. I'm not sure how in the world one woman can create so much garbage. She will have her bins out, but it's always overfilling. Many times I've come out of my driveway to go to work just to then see a pile spilled over of fresh garbage sitting right in front of my driveway right after the raccoons got to it. Or all of her bins will be blocking my car from leaving. I've spoken to her many times about this, and she always says that she does, and claims it must be getting moved around by the wind or knocked over by the raccoons. Now, there is no way in the world all that garbage is getting blown around by the wind. The raccoon part, I believe, but there are locks on the garbage bins for a reason, and if you can't close it because there's too much trash, then that's a you problem. Lately, even when I know she's home, she will ignore me at the door. I always back out of my driveway, and I will see bins blocking my path. Now, I tolerate moving them out of my way, even though it really pisses me off every morning. But what I can't tolerate is when raccoons get into her crap, and as I'm backing out, I see piles and piles of garbage blocking my path. I mean, I've had to use a shovel to get it out of the way once. I've been waking up a bit earlier to move her garbage, and the other day I asked myself, why in the world am I going out of my way to help this stupid idiot? I took a good hard look at her bins, and I just kicked them as hard as I could over to her side, and the garbage spilled over into her driveway instead of mine. I've noticed now she is slowly learning to take proper care of her garbage, and sometimes she even puts it on the other side of her driveway. She has been a lot better lately, but not perfect. She sometimes now locks the bin hinges and keeps it on the other side of the street, but whenever I catch it in front of my driveway, I will just kick it back to her side. Well, I told my wife about it, and she said this is so pathetically low of me, but she doesn't have to wake up and deal with someone else's crap, so I don't really expect her to understand. Or maybe I'm a piece of garbage myself, I don't know. I honestly feel like I've done my part being nice, because at this point I honestly just don't care anymore. So am I the jerk because right now I don't know what to do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. This lady is so out of line for even putting her garbage all over your driveway, it's not even funny. And yes, if she's not locking it up correctly, guess what? Anything that happens to it is absolutely her fault. And the fact that you gotta put up with that is so uncalled for. So no, I don't blame you in the slightest for getting upset and kicking those garbage cans over, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. I'm convinced that my roommates have been letting someone else sleep in my room while I'm not there, as I continuously find all kinds of items that are not mine scattered about my bedroom. And at this point, I'm incredibly creeped out and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. From 2022 to 2023, I lived with 3 other girls in a college apartment for a year. It was a beautiful apartment and I really miss it. They all had been friends since high school and I needed a place to stay. And upon meeting them, at first I was excited to get to know new people and experience a good year living with them. The lease began in June of 2022, and from June until November, we all got along just fine. Now, I have a dog sitting business, and it was really picking up at around that time. In November of 2022, my best friend spent the night at said apartment. A few days passed after our sleepover, and I just got back from a dog sitting job. I saw a blanket in my room that was not mine. I asked my best friend if it was hers, and she said no. I then texted the group chat with my roommates, and they all did not claim the blanket. I thought it was weird, so I just tossed it on the couch in the living room for someone to claim. Fast forward maybe a few weeks or something, and I noticed a t-shirt that was not mine in my room. And again, I asked them if it was theirs, but no one collected it. Now, I do not do my laundry at the apartment, as I do live close by, and I just take my stuff home so it never gets mixed up with their stuff. More time passed at this point, and I find women's underwear in my bedroom. Now, again, I text the group chat asking whose this is, but no one claims it. I know it's not mine, as it's not the same size as all my other pairs, and I only buy the same size. This was very weird at this point. I've asked them in the past if anyone slept in my room, or even used it to do the deed, if you know what I mean. To be honest, if they asked me ahead of time if their friends could crash in my room, as I'm not there dog sitting sometimes, I would 100% be cool with it. No one has ever stolen anything in my room, but I have found more items in my room that are not mine. I consider getting a camera, but to be honest, if someone is spending some quality time in my room, I do not want that on camera. As I said, no one ever stole anything, so it was never that deep to me, but I was confused why they kept lying. The last item I found was close to the end of our lease, which was in about May of 2023, and it's there that I found an Apple Watch. Now that is not cheap, so when I asked whose it was, no one claimed it. So they really just did not want to admit anything or take back an expensive item that was probably one of their friends. I was so confused and shocked, so I asked the landlord if I could put a lock on my door while also explaining the situation with screenshots of our group chat. Well, the landlord said I could not do that due to the lease agreement, and at this point I was kind of pissed off because I was being gaslit into thinking all these items are mine. One of the girls even said, well, maybe your stuff got mixed in with the wash, but then I told her how I don't do the wash at the apartment, and after that she had nothing else to say. When we finally moved out, I made sure to avoid them at this point because it was just way too awkward. Nothing came out of it, but I think back on it occasionally, and I still could not fathom why they'd let people in my room, and even if it was a mistake, they could have easily just said, oh, sorry, we didn't know that people were in your room, and I would have said, as long as you asked, it's cool with me. So with all that being said, I was in charge of the Wi-Fi for the apartment, and you know what? I turned the Wi-Fi off occasionally whenever this happened. They used the library to do their work or a friend's house, so it's not like they couldn't get their work done, but I was admittedly petty, and I shut the Wi-Fi off on occasion. Oh my gosh, that is so sketchy. Seriously, think about that for a second. These people are hiding some kind of like friend going in and out of your room, and even though this person's leaving an Apple Watch in your room, they're still not fessing up and being like, oh yeah, someone's living in your room while you're not there. Like seriously, that is so sketchy, it's not even funny. So overall, I guess congratulations on getting the Apple Watch, because these roommates were being incredibly sketchy, and if they just told the truth, then all of this could have been figured out. My mother is draining the newly found life out of me in a way that I haven't experienced since my childhood, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my parents should not have had kids. I'm an accident that never should have been given a chance, and I say that despite how hard I'm clinging to life right now. They were unfit then, and they're 1,000 times worse now. But you know what? My mother takes the cake. Before I could barely form memories, she cheated on my dad, and then spent the following 24 years genuinely believing that he was in the wrong. We talked about it around a year ago, and the reason she believes he was at fault is because he begged her to have some kind of trio relationship with a friend of his. She could have said no, and she was practically the boss in their marriage. She did not find it difficult to put him down for everything else, so by no means was she forced into accepting his desire. Well, she did it, fell in love with the other guy, and then started seeing him. But she thinks that she was allowed to because he wanted to have a trio. No matter how much I tell her that's wrong, she works it out in her mind that she's the victim. When she remarried, she did so to beat my father to remarry, not even out of love, and she will admit as much. According to my stepdad, who has no reason to lie 20 years later, he claims that she was on heavy substance use during their marriage. He was in a car accident at one point, and she stole his painkillers to get high, leaving him to suffer. At one point, while she was under the influence, once, they got into an argument that led to her pushing him down a flight of stairs. So you know what? He left her, and she spent my whole life telling me that he abandoned us. She went insane after that. She was either drinking or doing some substance when she got into a major car accident, which somehow made her worse. And for years, she wasted away, living in filth, not paying her electric bills, never keeping any food around, not even getting up to take me to school. We ended up homeless quite a few times as well. So after that, I stopped living with her, and she then started guilt-tripping me. But the worst part about this time period is that she started to act a little too nice towards me after a while, almost in a way where she was trying to manipulate me. Now, I didn't pick up on it at the time, but I've had years to process it by now. And trust me, things really took a weird turn where she got a little bit too close to me in a way that was very inappropriate, saying things that were really weird and honestly just giving me a strange vibe. Now, I was and still am very uncomfortable around her, and I think I make that pretty obvious. Fast forward to 2023, and I had been radio silence for years at this point. I was homeless and in a very bad way health-wise, and yet I refused to contact her to beg for help. I mean, I was going to pass away alone in a parking lot, and I had made peace with that. My ex is the one who contacted her for me, and I don't hold any ill will against her for doing that. She did end up saving my life, but my life trap with my mother again has not been good for me at all. For the first 6 months, I felt like I needed to hold my tongue, because she was the one more or less taking care of me while my body tried to heal. So I played the grateful daughter, and I kept my mouth shut when she inevitably broke my boundaries. And one such boundary was, please do not touch me. And this is especially true given the previous issues mentioned. After about 6 months, she started talking to a guy who lived overseas. She claimed he was going to come into our lives and give us everything that we needed. He was going to pay to get her issues fixed up and get us a nice house and all this other crap. But obviously, this was a scam, and I definitely said as much, but did she listen? No, of course not. She sent him enough money to start a building project of some kind, and maybe it was a house, I'm not really sure as she didn't specify, but she lied about that too, even when she lost her apartment due to too much missed rent. Now this part isn't as worse as everything else she's done or continues to do, it just makes me really angry for some reason. She got me pizza for my birthday while we were out living in our cars, which I didn't pass up because we were otherwise frequently starving. She said she also bought one of those brownie trays and asked if I remembered her making me brownies for my birthday when I was a kid. When I told her no, she asked me if I remembered anything good from my childhood. After that, I said no, and she then started crying. Then she took the brownies with her and ate them alone all by herself. And it's like, okay, I didn't want anything for my birthday anyways. I didn't even want to acknowledge it that year. But why even mention that as if it were a birthday thing just to eat them all yourself? And by the way, I'll say it again, we were basically starving at the time. She did things like that a lot, doing favors for people like driving them around and asking for candy or sweets or soda in return, but rarely any food. And then she would just eat all of it herself. I swear, in the nearly 9 months that we were out there, she somehow gained weight while I lost a significant amount of weight. But now that we're housed, she is no better. We have cats again, despite her history of them passing away. She vapes in and around the house all the time, and I've urged her to stop, but she won't do it. She was also sleeping with her boyfriend upstairs, but his snoring kept her awake, so now she sleeps right outside my room with her TV on at all hours of the night, keeping me awake. And when I ask her to stop sleeping with the TV on, she says I'm not respecting her PTSD coping methods or whatever, even though she slept without a TV plenty while we've been here with no issues. She's also incredibly loud. She's never below an outside volume, waking me up all the time. She quit her job recently because she didn't like that her boss had to train her because she's so full of herself that she thinks she's the best and hardest worker to literally any job she works. She's constantly moaning because she's in pain, and it keeps her from complaining about it, even though she does that plenty. She does all of these things that for a while I can bite my tongue, but eventually it gets too much and she'll do or say something to just set me off. And I then tell her how she's making me feel, but she then uses that against me, takes my anger as an aggression to make me out to be the bad guy, tells me that I'm selfish, spoiled, ungrateful, says I'm always negative and that I'm never happy. But that's just the thing. I was depressed for 15 years, and despite all odds, I somehow managed to pull myself most of the way out of it. Religion helped a lot, and for a while I could smile at the rising sun. I felt like I could breathe again. I was so proud of myself. And you know what? I was excited about life and my future. And for the first time in around 15 years, I didn't want to pass away. But she is becoming too much. Every time that we get into a yelling match, she throws insults at me. She projects all of these things that she does onto me. She makes me out to be the awful person that she is. I felt no joy to be alive today. I felt no passion. I felt no interest in anything. I didn't even take care of myself. I hardly even ate any food today. I just stayed in bed to rot. I was supposed to be here until at least August of 2026, but I don't think I can make it. She's driving me insane. I haven't been manipulated the way she's manipulating me since I lived with my father and his girlfriend in 2021. I thought I escaped it before, but I'm trapped once again. And all of this just feels like a cruel joke. Oh man, I really hope the original poster is able to move out and move on from this lady. Your mom sounds like an awful person, and I'm so sorry for the way she treated you. Like seriously, she sounds so bad. She not only mistreated you your entire life, but then she tries to turn it around and be like, oh no, this is your fault. Basically projecting all of her insecurities onto you. So hopefully life works out for you, and hopefully this all somehow gets like figured out where you're able to have another place to live and you don't have to deal with her, because the way she's treating you is completely unfair. Am I overreacting after my boss called my pregnancy a mistake? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female and I'm seeing a 27-year-old coworker, and honestly, to put it bluntly, I got pregnant. However, we kept it a secret, but then rumors got around at work that I was pregnant because I was starting to show. I was always pale and tired and even threw up as I was experiencing the normal symptoms of being pregnant. Now, for a bit of background information that might be a little bit useless, me seeing this coworker became a controversy at work because, well, everyone hates the guy and he is a jerk to people and I'm all rainbows and sunshine. We are polar opposites and our coworkers didn't like that. We just tell everyone at work that we're friends while also denying anything that they have to say, despite the fact that it's not any of their business that we're together or not. My boss also doesn't like me for some reason, but I'm sure it's because I made an anonymous report on him for being degrading to the women employees, and somehow he found out and even confronted me about it. So he's been targeting me at work while also giving me less and less hours to work, leading me to already looking for another job. However, to fast forward, I ended up having a miscarriage and I called off the week sick and I came back tomorrow. Then my boyfriend called me and told me about a conversation my boss had with him today. My boss asked my boyfriend who he talks with at work, and for reference, my boyfriend doesn't really talk to anybody and he just keeps to himself, and that's exactly what he said. Then my boss was like, oh, well, what about a certain young woman in this department? And my boss was referring to me. After my boyfriend said that we're just friends, my boss said, oh, really? I heard a lot of things, and are you sure you're just friends? Because it better stay that way. Don't want to make any mistakes. Now at this point, my boyfriend told me that our boss kept repeating the word mistake to him, and eventually he walked away from his boss. So not only am I upset with what I'm dealing with, but I'm also upset that he was suggesting the pregnancy was a mistake. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and I honestly just can't stop thinking about all of this. So seriously, am I overreacting about this situation? Or is this a circumstance that I should just let go? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and very confused, and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I don't think you're overreacting, because you know what? Your boss has no place to talk to you or your boyfriend like that. It really seems like he was trying to fish for information about the two of you, and he was obviously trying to suggest like, oh yeah, you guys better just stay friends, as if there would be some kind of consequence if you didn't. And that is really weird and super toxic. Like, you guys don't deserve that. And trust me, I understand what someone listening might think right now, and I completely agree. In most cases, you really should not date your coworkers. Like, it's really not the best idea, and chances are you don't even like them and you're just around them a lot, so that's why you're attracted to them. Also, if you have a breakup in that kind of environment, like, it really tanks your career and it could ruin people's lives. People can have hurt feelings, then everything's weird in the office, and it's like, okay, someone's got to make a job change or something because this is awful. But from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like this is the case between you and your boyfriend, and honestly, it sounds like a normal relationship that you're just keeping on the down low. So for your boss to come to your boyfriend and be like, oh yeah, mistakes happen, like, that really does seem like double speak, where he's saying one thing but he also means another, as if your pregnancy was a mistake, and like, that is so weird. Your boss has no room to talk about this, and honestly, he really should mind his own business. So no, I don't blame you for looking for another job, and I honestly don't blame you for getting upset about this, because I know if I was in your shoes or your boyfriend's shoes, I would feel the exact same way. My boss's entitled psycho wife treats me like garbage all the way up until the day that I quit, where she demanded that I delete my administration account that was incredibly important to the function of this company. But as a result, everything came tumbling down, as her job and reputation quite literally went down the drain. Here's what happened. Okay, so 15 years ago, I worked at a gas station as an opener. Because I was young and somewhat tech savvy, I was also the de facto IT for the 3 stores near me, and had been heavily involved in setting up a new point of sale system for their 2 most successful stores when they were swapped from one gas brand to another. The company had also made me super admin on all registers just for ease of transition, and trust me, this will be important later on. Now, it's important to know that the owner's wife had been awful to me for the 2 years that I worked there. I got bumped to opener by her husband, and she hated having a man be an opener. Historically, every single opener was picked by her, and they were her a woman, but her husband came and fired the previous opener for theft while the two of us were swapping shifts. So I guess you could say I got a field promotion of sorts. The wife was constantly scrutinizing everything that I did, constantly calling me in the mornings to be rude and berate me for a bunch of minor things that I did wrong. She would say stuff like, "You use wet wipes on the area around the drink machine. I want you to use paper towels and spray." But the thing is that we were out of paper towels and the spray we had smelled like a hospital anyways. One time she even said, "I came in your store last night and there were 3 rows of Snapple apple, and you could probably increase sales by putting 1 or 2 of those rows to a different product." But it's like, are you kidding me right now? The Snapple fridge was 100% handled by the vendor, and we'd signed a contract that we wouldn't change the layout of the product. So basically, to summarize, she was awful to me because I was a guy. I also was the person who set up their point of sale system because I was somewhat tech savvy, and I was made a super admin on the registers that they had. Well, fast forward and I was desperately looking for work, which is when I found a temporary IT job, which then led to my current career. And since I got a new job offer, I gave her husband 2 weeks notice, but never told her, because I did my very best to avoid talking to her unless absolutely necessary. Well, when she did find out, it was Tuesday of my last week, and she legitimately lost her mind. She gave me a ton of stuff to do, and worked me to the bone until 2:00 p.m. on the last Friday I worked. But finally, the time to depart forever came along, and she personally came with an office worker and stood by me and asked me to delete my account from the register. Now, I knew I was a super admin, and I had been told that if I ever left, I need to convert the account. And she had been told about this, but had long forgotten it. So I just said, you know what, screw it. I complied, and then I went to the other store and did likewise while she watched. And this is where my revenge truly takes place. I then go about my life and I start my new job, and I end up about 3 weeks in when I get a frantic voicemail and like 20 text messages and calls from her. I called the office worker who stood over my shoulder with her, and I got the scoop. She basically couldn't change any prices at all when new beer or soda prices started rolling out, and her new opener had just let it all pile up because she didn't know how to do it, and they were going to have someone come in and train her. They had a bunch of items 5 or 10% below the price they were supposed to be at, and margins on cases of beer are low, and this was completely destroying their profits. Once I thought it over, I texted her and I said, "You asked me to do this, and it's on video, and I have 3 witnesses. Namely, the person she had me training, the person I swapped with, and the office worker who 2 weeks later had quit the company." I then found out later that they ended up spending $6,000 to get the company back out to fix the issue. And the boss's wife legitimately had a Facebook page at one point with people legitimately planning to crap on her grave when she eventually passed away. So I obviously was not the only person she was awful to, but I do feel like I got one up on her, and it honestly feels so good. Oh man, I love this so much. The fact that she's like, "Oh, you need to delete your account right now," not knowing exactly how much crap she's about to be in my opinion, is beautiful. That is some beautiful revenge that she literally did to herself. Like, that is everything you could possibly hope for. And I love the fact that you gave her absolutely no help at all. You told her to take a hike and accept the punishment. And with someone like your boss's wife acting like this towards you, in my opinion, she absolutely deserves to be taken down. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I am incredibly depressed because I can't get past the fact that my best friend and my boyfriend of 7 years were very rude to me on our vacation, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, as the title suggests, I can't get past the fact that my best friend and my boyfriend of 7 years were rude to me on our vacation. So for a bit of context, me, my boyfriend, and my best friend and her husband went on a vacation for 15 days. It was one of my dream vacations, and I spent a lot of money on it, so my expectations were very high. On another note, my best friend really likes my boyfriend because she thinks he's a really nice guy, which I totally agree with. But she also wants me to end up with him. She tends to validate him a lot, even when I share with her some behaviors about him that make me sad sometimes. At our vacation, she of course continued to validate him, even in front of her husband, making comments such as, "Look at what he is doing for her, so lovely." However, she made a joke once towards me, which made me feel kinda sad. She said to me, "You don't deserve him." And then my boyfriend agreed, and that made me even sadder. Although she also makes fun of him sometimes, like she does with everyone else. Now, my boyfriend tends to be very caring towards others, and he seeks validation just like me, and we are both alike on this regard. However, since he is a little more passive, he tends to explode with me, and it happened on our vacation. For example, we were fighting about our suitcase, and the fact that I had more things than him in the suitcase that we were sharing, or even the fact that I did not want to buy a full day ticket for the metro, even though when I asked him about it, he agreed. But the worst was when he yelled at me in front of them because I was postponing going to the swimming pool to meet the other couple. And this is all because I was really tired. I cried a little during the night without him noticing because I was trying to figure it out on my own. After a few days on the trip, I started to realize that he was more distant, like sitting near my best friend, talking with her and her husband more, leaving me a little bit out. I decided to talk to him about my feelings, and he admitted that he needs to be more assertive sometimes and to not explode. And he agreed with my best friend because they get along really well, and that she elevates him to a pedestal, which just makes me feel even worse and maybe a little bit jealous. So I returned to him that makes me feel worse because he prefers the validation of others, and that she tends to do that with other people as well. In fact, she used to do that with my ex. I also talked with my best friend, and she said she was sorry and that it was never intentional. She thinks she was trying to welcome him since he is the newest of the four of us. But right now I feel like crap, kind of disrespected, and I've been considering getting away from both of them because they made me feel kind of sad and betrayed in part. More than that, I fear going on vacation with them in the future because I fear all of these feelings may be coming back. What should I do? Honestly, the way your boyfriend's yelling at you in front of other people, in my opinion, is a massive red flag. Like, first of all, it kind of seems like you shouldn't have your boyfriend around your best friend in the first place, because regardless of what she's saying, in my opinion, the way she's acting is a little bit weird. You mean to tell me she's willingly like going along with this and being like, oh yeah, he's so great and perfect, but by the way, I want you to stay with him, don't worry about me. Like, that can work sometimes, but in my opinion, it just doesn't seem right. But overall, I don't like the fact that your boyfriend yelled at you, and I don't like the fact that your friend did nothing to try and like, I don't know, avoid the situation or even like stay out of it in general. And hopefully for the sake of you and your relationship, everything works out the way that it's meant to. My 14-year-old nephew is an absolute nightmare to be around, and even though I've tried to correct him in front of his parents, he still gets away with his garbage, leaving me in a situation that honestly I don't want to deal with. Here's what happened. Okay, so where do I even start with this? My nephew is the second child, and his older brother is so well behaved and regarded more favorably. So this 14-year-old thinks that being a contrarian makes him interesting. Within the last 6 years, he has punched me squarely down below 2 times at family events, and I think you know what I'm talking about. The first time he didn't get in any trouble, and my sister and her husband were mad at me for calling him an idiot as I was fighting the pain. The second time, which was a couple of years later, he was forced to apologize to me, but he refused and ultimately never got in trouble for that either. And it's unfortunate because he does have brief moments where he can be cool, but a few minutes later, he's shooting his 2000 Nerf darts at me when I tell him to stop, all while aiming at my face and again down below, or trying to throw a kickball down there, or he'll just gesture like he's about to punch me without doing it. So I have to brace as if I'm gonna get hit anytime that I'm around him, or if there's any kind of clear shot. And I feel like such a loser for having to do that around him. He has no regards for anything and especially is careless, rubbing up against my mom's beloved Christmas tree ornaments or other decorations. My parents don't really say anything as they try to remain neutral towards all of their kids, as well as towards their only 2 grandkids. And right now, I don't know what to do. His brief moments of coolness are completely overshadowed by how annoying he is to be around, and I just don't trust him at all. Worst of all, I can't exactly be a jerk to him when he's acting normal, because then I'm asking for trouble. I try to remove myself from his presence, but our family gatherings are in a very small house, so it's very difficult. I feel like if he does it a third time, I'm going to fight back. He knows he doesn't get in trouble for anything, and anytime he's reprimanded, it's basically ignored. I don't know what to do, and I know if I stop going to family things, my parents and siblings will not acknowledge my side of the problem. Talking it out doesn't seem realistic, and he's too young to call the police on him. And yeah, that's how much it's driving me insane. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, if he's actually 14 years old and he's punching you places he definitely should not be punching you, then you have every right to call the cops on him. Like, seriously, at this point, this kid's hitting you, and that is not okay. You've tried to talk it out with like the parents and figure out some kind of solution, and you've done everything you can, but you're like walking around paranoid. So honestly, if I was in your shoes and I can only speak to what I would do, I would absolutely get the police involved if these parents are not going to discipline their kid and control him from assaulting me. Because guess what? That really is assault. No matter how much he thinks it might be funny, he can't do that to people. And this is one of those scenarios where he can either learn the easy way or he can learn the hard way by the police showing up. My stepdad was incredibly petty and very nasty to me, especially when it came to me using the internet as a kid. So I decided to get some revenge by returning the favor when he was older and started living with me. Here's what happened. Okay, so when I was 20 years old, I lived with my mom and stepdad in his mom's house. I paid $400 in rent and paid for my own groceries and covered one bill. And this was to set me up supposedly for being an adult. I also shared a room with my 18-year-old sister. Later, I shared a room with her fiance. She also paid $400. The room was very small with a small closet. My sister and I both were in college and worked full time. time. My stepdad would get mad because we would be on the computer until early morning hours doing homework or on social media. So he got a device and it turned off the internet, which we paid for, by the way, at 10 o'clock p.m. via some remote access. And if he got some kind of wild hair, he would just keep it off. Fast forward, and now he lives with me and my mom because he lost his house with some get-rich-quick scheme. He then started staying up late watching TV. Now I pay for all the streaming that he watches, and I pay for the internet. He pays for no bills other than rent. Well, I put a limit on the internet, so now he has to go to sleep at 12 o'clock and can't watch anything until after 6 o'clock in the morning. And funny enough, he's upset that his TV no longer works past 12 o'clock. Well, he doesn't know that I put a limit on that and his TV only, while the rest of the devices in the apartment work perfectly fine. But if there's anyone that deserves it, it definitely is my stepdad. Wow, that guy is a piece of work. Seriously, turning off the internet all because you're up late, probably quietly doing stuff like homework or just being on social media? Like seriously, that's so stupid. There's no reason to be treating anybody like that and to be so weird and controlling. It's not like it's hurting you or anybody else. He was just being a weirdo, and that's not fair for you in the slightest. Now, in my opinion, I think setting the time limit to 10 o'clock would be really funny, but maybe it would be too on the nose for him to figure it out. But either way, I think this is some fantastic petty revenge, because from the sounds of it, your stepdad absolutely deserves this. Am I the jerk for not paying my friend back after I sent the money to the wrong Cash App account after she gave me the wrong account name? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend let me borrow $150 2 weeks ago. She gave it to me in cash, so I was going to pay it back to her in cash. When I got paid this past Friday, I texted her letting her know I was going to drop it off to her on my way home from work. She then responded by saying to Cash App her instead, and then immediately followed up with her cash tag. Well, I sent it right away. But then about an hour later, she texted me asking if I could send it as soon as possible, but I replied saying that I did. She said she didn't get it, and at this point I started panicking, thinking that I sent it to the wrong person, but she responded before I did and said that she sent me the wrong username. And I just simply said, yikes, that's not good. Now, here's where things get really messy. She asked me if I could send it again, but I didn't have it. I'm struggling right now, hence the reason I had to borrow it in the first place. And even if I did have it, I don't feel like I should have to give it to her. If it was my mistake, I would have figured something out, but that is not the case here. But I didn't want to tell her that though. I didn't know how to respond, so I just said, well, let me call Cash App. But calling them was pointless because they pretty much said, well, good luck with that. I thought hard about what to say, but eventually I texted her back and I said, I called them and they said there's nothing they can do. I really don't have it, so I don't know what else to do. And she said okay. At this point, I haven't heard from her ever since then, and I figured that she was upset. I mean, anyone would be when they lose money, but this morning I found out that she really is pissed off at me. One of our mutual friends called me, and apparently my disgruntled friend believes that I should send her the money and figure out a way to get the other $150 back. But that's not gonna happen. Now, I want to call her, but I wanted to ask if I'm the jerk first, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, there is no way this is your fault. She sent you the wrong Cash App username. That is literally not your fault. You sent it off and said, okay, I sent it, thinking that she didn't have some kind of typo error of some kind. Like seriously, this could have been taken care of in cash, but she's like, no, send it Cash App instead. So in my opinion, I think you're completely justified by saying, no, I can't send this to you and I really can't help you, I'm sorry. Because in my opinion, she's the one that messed up and not you. My parents are neglecting me financially while they're living lavish lives. And at this point, I'm desperate for work and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've talked before about struggling with money, but I wasn't entirely honest about my situation. My parents aren't struggling financially. They just refuse to help me out in any way, shape, or form. They buy themselves expensive things. They keep food hidden in their own personal fridges. And when I ask for even $1, they act like I'm asking for the world. I have no school supplies, barely any clothing fit me, and they refuse to support me in any way. I tried to take control of my life and make a babysitting flyer asking my mom to share it with her friends. But instead of helping, she shut me down and started bringing up an old situation with her friend, someone who completely took advantage of me. Now, here's what happened with her friend. Last year, my mom's friend did my hair for prom, which I was really grateful for. After that, she started using me for free labor, making me help with her events and her venues. Now, I never got paid and I was just trying to be nice. One summer, she took me to a wedding venue under the impression that I'd just be watching her do makeup for experience. But when I got there, she suddenly forced me to do makeup on actual clients and basically said that if I got nervous, she would slap me. At this point, I was anxious and overwhelmed. And instead of teaching me, she kept pushing me aside and making me feel worse. Despite that, I still ended up doing more makeup than she ever did. And she only did 2 people while I did 3. On top of that, I helped move things around the venue venue and did whatever was needed. Later on, she locked her keys in her car and just completely flipped out on me, blaming me for it, yelling at me, and making a whole scene. Meanwhile, the people at the venue were also treating me like trash. They were talking badly about me behind my back, and this was happening even while I was helping them. I then had a full-blown anxiety attack. I ran to the bathroom crying, and I called my mom for help, but she didn't care. She just told me to deal with it. After everything, this woman only paid me $13 while she kept most of the money. I later messaged her politely, thanking her for the opportunity, but also letting her know I didn't want to help anymore because of how she treated me. I also asked if she could send my payments through my mom. Well, instead of supporting me, my mom got angry and told me that I had embarrassed her. She completely dismissed the fact that this woman threatened me, took advantage of me, and underpaid me. And my sister was the one who told me I was right to walk away. Well, my mom is now using this situation as an excuse to not support my babysitting efforts. She doesn't help me with money, food, or anything, yet she's blocking me from making my own. I've tried everything to earn money, babysitting, dog walking, applying for jobs, but nothing is working out. And now I'm at the point where I'm starting to beg. I don't want to keep living like this, because right now I am desperate to become independent and get out of this situation. Okay, first of all, this is not your fault, and I really hope you're able to get out of that house, because your mom and her friend are horrible people. First of all, this friend of hers absolutely should have paid you more than $13. It sounds like you did literally everything around there, and nobody supported you at all. And also, the way your mom treats you at home is just so inappropriate. Like, these people live in the lap of luxury, meanwhile you're sitting there struggling every single day. So hopefully you're able to get out from underneath them sooner than later, because these people do not sound like good people in the slightest. Am I the jerk after I told my ex-husband that I will not relocate me and my son just so he can move in with his girlfriend of 3 months? Because right now he is really pissed off and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so my ex-husband and I got divorced 5 years ago, and we have a split 50-50 custody of our 10-year-old son. We have always had an amazing co-parenting relationship, and I even considered us friends. Well, that all changed when he got a girlfriend 3 months ago. We have both dated and it's never been a problem, but this time it's different. I found out through a friend that he is dating a girl that he cheated on me with in the past. It stung a little, but I've moved on, and this was over a decade ago, so I let it go. We have always agreed that if we introduced our son to a partner, we would let each other know. So after I was dating my boyfriend for a year, I introduced him to our son, and I let my ex-husband know like we had agreed. The next week I go to our son's hockey game and I see his girlfriend. Not only has he not told me personally that he's dating her, he didn't tell me that she had met our son. After 1 month of dating, he introduced her to our son and never let me know. This caused a huge fight, and nothing has been the same ever since then. It's now been 3 months, and he calls me today asking if I would consider moving 3 hours away. He says the plan would be that him and our son will move in with his girlfriend, and I will get my own place nearby. And when he said that, I lost it. To preface, we live in our hometown. Our entire family is here, and this is the only town my son has ever known. So I said, absolutely not. I'm not leaving my home, my job, and my family so that you can play house with your girlfriend of 3 months. He's not allowed to relocate our son, by the way, so that's why he asked me to come too. Well, apparently he was so mad at me and couldn't even believe my reaction. He said he knew I always wanted to leave our hometown, so he didn't expect me to react negatively. Leaving my hometown does not mean moving 3 hours away with no friends or family to make his life more convenient just for his long-distance girlfriend that he barely knows. He said he thinks that this is what's best for our son and that he knows it would be hard to move away from family, but his girlfriend would provide him a loving and stable environment. He also doesn't think that this would be awful for a 10-year-old to have to move 3 hours away from everything he's ever known and also lose the life he had with his dad by moving in with a girl he's known for only, 2 months maybe? Well, I said I would not even consider this for a second, and that I'm not moving and neither is our son. So seriously, is this a completely delusional and inappropriate ask of him, or am I somehow the jerk? He has gaslit me for so long that sometimes I honestly just can't tell. What should I do? Okay, honestly, first and foremost, there's no way you're the jerk in this situation. Your ex-husband is completely wrong, and I think you're absolutely in the right. He literally wants to move in with a lady he's only known for 3 months and uproot this kid's life and your life in the process. He's not even beginning to think about you or your son in the slightest, and instead he's thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be a great life for me and my new girlfriend. And that blows my mind because he really doesn't even know her yet. He's only known her for 3 months, if that? And he's trying to sit there and be like, oh yeah, she's the one, this is the one I want to move in with. And let's say hypothetically you do uproot your life, leave your family and your job and all this other crap, and go somewhere that, guess what, you don't know anybody or anything. What if this this relationship of his doesn't work out, suddenly you're the one that's also going to be on the hook, and that sounds like an absolute nightmare. So no, your ex-husband's an idiot for even suggesting that, because this move, in my opinion, is definitely not right. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.